And I'm thinking, they're not actually hunting. That gobble was not a real gobble. That was all. I'm like, my whole world has been shattered. You know, I'm like,
who am I? HUNTR Podcast is brought to you by Deer Grow.
Man, we've been using Deer Grow products for a long time. The Plot Start and Plot Boost, more recently Plot Till. Now we've got 3 new liquid fertilizers that have been put in the mix that will cover everything we could want for a food plot program.
It's huge, man. The more food plotting we do, it's like, man, the liquids just make sense. Like whether it's herbicides or the Plot Start and Plot Boost, and now the fertilizers getting mixed in. It's like, man, I can combine all of those in certain cases and do less passes for more results.
I mean, it's all about efficiency. I mean, like you said, less passes. If you're out there treating your beans with glyphosate in the summertime, you can mix in this fertilizer, do that all at once. You have the boost in there to help some metabolism. It's all about efficiency when we're talking about food plots. And really the big difference on these liquid fertilizers is you're bypassing some of these soil limitations, pH limitations, the soil type. In a lot of cases, we talk about dry fertilizers only being available for 17% of what you put down in the first year. These liquid fertilizers straight into the plant are 90% available in the first year. Huge difference in what you're going to see in growth.
It's huge. And so right now you can use code HUNTR15 for 15% off any of the Deer Grow products on their website. And as always,
better food plots, bigger deer. Yeah, we're back.
Hey,
HUNTR Podcast, episode 208. Nick was here.
I have been judging you by your claps, by the way.
Some are good, some are bad.
Some are not so great. Some are,
just
we're working on it.
Some of them solid, some of them are just a mess.
Sorry, I cut you
pity clap. Yeah, it's 208. Nick's here. He's out.
208.
We are...
Dude, I didn't even do it on the last one. I'm just now remembering because now it's time to do it. So wherever you guys are coming to us from, YouTube, Apple Podcasts, or Spotify, thank you guys for being here. Give us a like, follow. Oh boy, you can tell I'm rusty on that. Give us a like, follow, or subscribe. Whatever's appropriate for the channel. One of those will give you a notification as to when these drop, but they are Tuesdays and Thursdays at 6 p.m. Eastern time. If you've written us on Instagram DM or the website, we appreciate you doing so. I know we're behind a little bit.
We're getting there.
Especially on Instagram. I just like that. I
have to binge it.
Can't keep up with them, but we appreciate you guys reaching out nonetheless. Be persistent with us, and we'll get back to you at some point. If you want, check out some of our merch. It's on the website. We've got those Make Hunting Great Again shirts and lots of other cool stuff, including some Nalgene's maybe by now. That'd be cool.
Potentially.
So, if you want that, check it out. And here we go.
One of those people messaging us is John. So we've got in-studio guests, guys from Leatherwood Outdoors. So we've got John and Shane in studio.
Old Leatherwood boys.
Yeah. We've talked about it for a while now. It's like, okay, we got to get the schedules aligned. It makes sense, obviously, because you guys are fairly local to have you here in the podcast room. Just makes it easier, and it's a lot more fun.
I almost reached out to Mike Lauer to have him come out today because his dad is a big fan. He's a
huge fan.
He's like, what are you doing? He's like, I'm watching these Leatherwood boys catch a rattlesnake. Look at this rattlesnake.
So, anyways, we appreciate you guys coming down from Clarion County.
Yep.
So this will be a good one for anybody that's kind of local to our Western PA area. But you guys would know. I mean, your channel. Well, we'll save some of that for that. But I guess just briefly. Whoever wants to start, John, Shane, just give us an introduction to who you are and kind of what your background is with the channel and stuff.
Yeah, so with YouTube, I grew up behind the camera a lot. My dad was always carrying the video camera every time we went somewhere. He has my very first deer I ever killed when I was 12 years old, VHS stuff. I mean, over on the shoulder, the big bulky stuff. That's really aging myself here.
Over the shoulder, that's serious VHS.
That's like the
not
big
even the handy cam.
Right.
The big dog.
Yeah, the big stuff, not the little high 8 cassettes, the big giant ones.
Wow.
So we had that, and Dad always videotaped everything, fishing, hunting, everything. And so coming out of high school, and Shane and I, we all both went to Red Bank Valley High School and played on the same Little League team and everything. But we were in different grades, so we knew of each other. Coming out of high school, me and a friend were like, "Hey, let's try to capture a hunt on camera, just like they do on TV." So we tried for like a year before we actually got our first doe kill on camera. And I was always tinkering around with video stuff and plugging it into the TV and recording it through a VCR DVD player and then digitalizing it. YouTube came out in 2005, 05, I think.
Sounds right.
And started really getting popular.
Oh, that's weird to think about.
Yeah, 06, 07 is when it really started taking off and is making headlines. I created my very first channel in 2007.
Wow.
But it wasn't the Leatherwood Outdoors channel, because when I first started, I thought I was going to be making dirt bike racing videos, you know, dirt bike, quad hills. That's all we did. We're in strip job land up there, spoilie piles, hill climbing, all that type of stuff. Yeah, that's all we did. Go all day and ride. Well, then, you know, getting to that point where it's like, okay, can't really quite get hurt for work and all that kind of stuff. Like, let's go try to videotape a deer hunt. Did that. My area is called Leatherwood, so that's how I came up with the name. And
makes sense. I was going to ask you that.
And so,
like, the area that you hunt in is called Leatherwood. Okay, gotcha.
Yep. And there's a trout stream that runs right through it and everything. They stock big giant breeder.
I didn't mean to draw everybody to the name there again. I was just clarifying.
So that's how the name came. I didn't think anything of it, and we started recording just whatever. And I always carried the camera anywhere, recording everything. I have videos of just videotaping a doe on the field for 10 minutes. And I look back and I'm like, what was I doing? But recorded everything. So when I started putting it on YouTube, Shane and his group of friends were also recording and filming. And it was just a matter of time when...
rival gang.
Well, it was more like we all had cameras, and YouTube was, I don't want to say an accident, but we all had cameras at the time. And someone would get a kill on, well, we'd all going to go, let's go show our parents. Let's go show your mom and dad.
Absolutely.
You know, let's go show your uncle. Well, then we're dragging cords. We're dragging a camera. We're fast forward. And you know what I mean? All over the place trying to find this hunt on a camera over hours of footage, you know? So then it's like, give the stuff to Johnny. He breaks it down, puts it on YouTube. We can go to that house
Makes
now.
it nice and clean.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
so
why.
that's kind of how it.
Yeah, when we started, if you wanted to show anybody anything, you had to have the right cords and make sure their TV had
what the hell is that? HDMI what?
No,
that's
this is
the
before
thing.
HDMI.
Like,
it was all AV cables at that point.
The red, white, and yellow cables and everything. And some people's TVs
Those were the good days,
weren't even, I mean, we were at a time where people's TVs weren't even compatible with the video camera.
Sure,
No
go
aux
to
cords.
grandpa's. Yeah, I go to my grandpa. He can't show him
drawer.
anything because his TV's so old. Antenna's sticking out of the top of it, you know.
Yeah.
I remember burning mine because we filmed. So this is in that 6-7 time period. Well, you know, so Ange, Tessa, and Rieger, who were on here, the Eastern Woodlands guys, we had our little group was like Western Pennsylvania Outdoors. That was what we kind of did our little thing for. And we started filming. Like I said, I think I filmed my first one in the late 90s, but it was really around that 2000, 2001 time frame that we started filming our stuff. And sometime when we were still in high school, so I graduated in 03, we burned it on a DVD. It had like the title screen where you could select play. And I think every time a deer got into range, like whatever, Ted Nugent, you know, Fred Bear came on, or Stranglehold or something like that, right?
Oh, wow, you had music over it?
Oh,
too?
yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
You guys were legit.
Well, that's the way hunting videos work. You couldn't put music. There was no such thing as a hunting video without music.
Yeah.
At the time, that's the way
That's the way it was done. Yeah.
And that's when I just checked to find out when I actually created the channel. It's been so long. Was in August of 2008.
Man, that has to be a huge advantage though, because at that point in time, like that was like, I mean, it was the early days of YouTube. So like from an algorithm standpoint, for all the stuff that we try to play with now, like if you really wanted to have a definitive channel, starting it back then was your best chance.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it wasn't like digital cameras were just coming on the scene.
Yeah.
They were very expensive. Like today, $1,000 camera is nothing, but back then, $500. Like, whoa, wait a minute. You know, you really got to be into something for a $500 camera. Now it's nothing to buy a $1,000 camera.
Right.
But they're still making now that you have cameras that are $250 that are just as good as those cameras back then.
Mm-hmm.
And so when I created the channel, came up with the name, got a few videos, and we're just putting whatever on there. And I'm like, I'm not doing the dirt bike thing. Deleted that channel, just stayed with hunting. And one thing I wanted to do was just get away from the music.
Yeah.
Because everything I watched on TV,
Every one of them,
which you had to be there at the right time to watch whatever show you wanted to watch, it was a dramatic music or whatever. Some of the music was totally obnoxious in the videos because it would be rock and roll or whatever. Just didn't jive with the video. And then right before the kill shot, it would cut off. You'd hear that, and then dramatic music again. Everybody was making that, and I'm like, I cannot stand that. Like, I want to hear the leaves crunch. I want to hear the guy breathing. I want to hear his heart pounding. I want to hear something. So I just made it a rule, like, I am not putting music to anything. And so that's how we started. Shane and Hunter Ruby, you guys came to me. It's been so long, we're going to try to remember how this all happened. They're just like, hey, we got all this footage. What can you do? 2, 3, maybe 4, maybe 1 buck, and the rest were doe. I mean, at the time. You had Hunter's recurve buck, and you had...
Oh, that's right. So that would have been... Yes. Yeah, and
then you had a little doe kill that you stuck.
A 40-pound doe.
And you guys were going to call yourselves the Bow Boys or something.
Yeah,
the Bow Boys. Very nice. Wow.
Yeah. No, it was intense.
That's like the original Proud Boys. Yeah. Bow Boys.
Did you say that in the video? It's the beginning of the Bow Boys.
Yeah, and
it's freaking
no
awesome.
idea what we're doing. You know what I mean? Going out and having fun.
That's it was so fun.
You know, and
And so he came. He's like, "Hey, we hear that you're putting stuff on. We're a small town. Word gets around." I was like, "All right, well, I can edit all this stuff." And they're like, "We were going to edit, but it costs a lot of money to have somebody edit stuff like this." I'm like, "Hey, I can take everything off like this. I'll put it on my channel when that time comes. If money," and you know, we start dreaming like, "Oh, we're going to be on the outdoor channel or something and have our own TV show." That's always like in the back of our heads. And so that's just the way it went. There was nothing like who's in, who's out.
Yeah.
It was just like that transition where those guys are coming out of college and there's more people like, "Hey, I'll pick up a camera. And there was none of this, "Hey, I'm going to hunt." You know, there were so many people wanting to film each other.
Yeah.
Now, my kind of group of friends that I was hunting with, none of them really wanted to pick up the camera.
Yeah.
A lot of his friends, and it was sort of like we just kind of all merged together. So it was kind of like we all knew each other anyways.
Yeah.
And so there was nobody who's in, who's out of Leatherwood Outdoors. It's still always
kind of revolving.
Yeah. So there's people that just say, "I don't really want to carry the camera anymore." And like, that's fine, because we're not like a company that makes you have to film. It's this is all for fun. This is all to share memories. That's the whole reason why we did it. We didn't start it to try to get subscribers. We didn't start it to get views. We didn't start it to try to get on TV. Although that was in the back of my head, that would be cool if it ever got there.
Sure. Yeah.
And it was just, let's just do it. Let's do it fun, and let's do it clean where everybody can watch. Grandpas and little kids can watch, and they're not going to be offended. But at the same time, we're going to show the good, the bad, and the ugly. You know, we're not going to edit out any of the blood.
Sugarcoat the stuff.
Yeah. And so that's the formula that we have stuck to today, other than we have the only music that I'm ever adding to a video today is like, maybe you have that B-roll footage you don't know what to do with, and you have a little.
There is some music, right?
Yeah. And
a hard line of no music is a tough line to walk.
Yeah, maybe like a 2 videos a year has music. That's it, and it's maybe out of a half-hour video, it's 1 minute.
Yeah,
and it's just a transition from day 1 to day 2.
Yeah,
and you have some of this cool footage you don't know what to do. Now, another thing with extra footage, there was a big thing in early YouTube. Nobody does it today, and I wish I would have never did it. But we would probably be way bigger if we would have not done this. But at the time, people who were big in YouTube got to the point where they started expanding outside of their expertise or what their main core audience was. So they created second channels. Everybody had a second channel. There was even third channels.
I was going to ask you how yours came about.
So we had all this extra footage that had no context. Somebody that didn't do a pregame, postgame. That's what we're talking about. Like, hey, this is today what we're doing, what we're using.
It's just here
it was just like, hey, there's a big buck, there it goes, and that's it.
Yeah.
Like, well, we just put that in a video, we have nothing. And nobody's going to sit there and talk about it.
Right.
So we would have these extra footage, and then that got into, well, let's make recipe wild game videos, mushroom hunting, and we never really got into review videos. If there was ever a review video, it was because we were getting pounded on, what are you using? And we're like, okay, we'll just tell you what we're using. And we just stayed away from sponsors. We didn't really get into any of that because we wanted to be able to do what we wanted to do when we did it, how often, and if somebody didn't want to do it anymore, there was no repercussions for that.
Yep.
And so that's the way we kept it. And now you see guys that are that film maybe one time and that's it. And there's guys that keep doing it, and that's the way it is.
I think it's funny, like in retrospect, to go back to that and think like how many other people like I was having that discussion in my little town. You guys were having like how many?
Oh, dude,
there was a lot of people at that time.
Who didn't want to like be Michael Waddell at some point in time? Even if it crossed your mind, you're like, I'm going to be famous. Yeah, I'm going to be.
Well, it was the first time that because of especially evolution on like the editing side for like every computer you bought had some sort of editing software already on it. Might not have been great. But you could, whatever, it was Movie Maker. Like I remember editing in Movie Maker back in the day, right? Like it's.
What was that other one? Like Media One Player or something?
Yeah, Media Player.
Media Player.
Yeah, but like anybody could do it, right? So as long as you could get that footage onto the computer, you had Movie Maker to like jam it together and build something.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was a kind of a weird time frame in that so many people did it. Now that said, like I don't even. I was probably doing this before YouTube, so YouTube never even really crossed my mind when we were doing it. Like that was a foreign thing at that point, and then probably by the time YouTube really started to pick up, like we all had kind of gone our separate ways, But yeah, it's funny to think back in that. I'm sure there's plenty of people listening to this that are like, yep, we did that. We had our little group, and it was whatever. But I think what was cool about it, like when I remember when I found your stuff. And again, people in this area will understand is like I felt like I watched a lot of like your deer camp videos and stuff like that. And it didn't need to be a production, right? It literally was like what my deer camp videos were, which was...
Everyone could relate to it.
Yeah.
Everyone
start and stop throughout the day.
To what happened.
Yeah. At night, playing poker or whatever, cooking, getting up in the morning, predictions of what's going to happen on opening day, quick shots in the woods and then a couple bucks hanging or whatever. Like, but that's what we all were looking for. So it was cool to see other people doing that type of stuff.
Yep. Yeah, I mean, that is it. There was no, okay, here's how we're going to go about this. There was no type of production talk. How are we going to make this channel grow? How are we going to do it? Like Shane said, we're just doing it for fun. We're not doing it for anybody but ourselves and for our family. Now, because of the feedback that we get from people, that inspired us to make our videos better.
Yeah.
And it made us want to make more videos. Now, at the same time, and we're all coming out of college and, coming off of high school and stuff like that, and we're all single.
Yeah. No kids.
No
wives, no girlfriends.
And so we had all the time in the world.
That's all we did every day.
Yeah.
Yep.
I mean, something. We were bow fishing, frog hunting, trapping turtle. I mean, grew up doing that stuff as a kid. I mean, we were doing that stuff constantly. We were just filming it now.
Right.
And we didn't even get everything on camera.
Yeah.
I mean, people are like, why don't you guys bear hunt? Why don't you guys coyote hunt? It's like, we do. We do. Like, do you realize how hard it is? We're not going to big bear country, in north central PA or anything like that. We're I think maybe in Clarence County, maybe average 40 bears.
Yeah. And you're driving them out of autumn olive fields,
right. And so we've done that. And I remember one year I took the camera. All I got was guys walking through brush. And I remember having a conversation that nobody wanted to post. Everybody wanted to drive because nobody wanted to kill a bear.
Yeah.
Because they knew what was going to come after killing a bear. It's like, well, I killed one last year. Why don't you kill one? You haven't killed one. Well, I'm kind of waiting. Let's.
What comes after killing a bear?
Well, you killed a monster a couple years ago.
Check station, getting it out of the woods. You got to take it to the check station.
Whole.
You killed what? A 400-pounder?
418-pounder. Yeah.
That's not easy to get out of the woods.
You said the second that you shot it, you're like, oh no.
Now the work begins.
Here it comes. So, normally when you kill a buck, it's like, okay, we know what we're gonna do.
Yeah.
And then then the real you kill something that big and you're like, okay.
Because you can't quarter it, right?
No.
You have to get it to the check station as is. You can gut it, right?
Right.
Yeah. That's it.
You're not allowed to quarter it.
I don't think you can.
I don't think so.
Because they want the full, they want to address the weight on the animal.
Yeah, because you take it to a check station, they pick it up with winch or whatnot with the scale on it and everything, and you'll get an estimated live weight.
Yeah,
and they require that. So
pull a tooth from it.
It's a mandatory check station.
Yeah, every.
So how do you do that? How'd you get it out?
Lots of people.
Everybody just throws it over there, like drags it.
We had a rope on each paw, a rope around its neck, started, and had a guy in each one, 3 guys pulling.
You had help because you had snow, though, too.
Yeah.
If it was
snow, that was huge.
So that was, and then we actually got it close enough where we could get a winch hooked up to a side bite, or a winch on a side bite hooked to a rope, and then we were able to winch it up over the hill.
Freaking 400 pounds is not light either. That's a lot of weight.
Well, even think about like dragging a 200-pound buck with no snow through the woods. Like
sucks.
Yeah.
It's not easy.
I don't do that anymore.
Yeah, it's not easy.
Well, that's it. I quarter them or I put them in machines.
Obviously now having like the bear archery season, which frankly I think is increasing the chances for anybody that bow hunts like tenfold for killing bears, because it just seems like bears are going under earlier and earlier and earlier every year. Like I've got some bears on camera now that are probably in that 300 to maybe 400 range. I'm thinking, if I shot that thing, first of all, how do I get it out? Second of all, if I get it to my truck, like I've got an F-250 that's high there. How the hell do I lift that thing in the back of my truck? You know,
you have to call
I don't look like Jared.
Call a whole bunch of people.
I'm not squatting
and that's another thing now. Back when everybody was single and had all the time in the world,
didn't matter.
Everybody came.
Yeah, it didn't
everybody
matter.
helped everybody drag every deer. Now, hey, kids, and that's just the way life is. And so, I went from missing maybe 3 days of archery season to only maybe even hunting 3 days of archery season. And that's the problem when people followed our channel and then all of a sudden go, what happened to you guys?
Yeah.
Like, what happened? Like, life happens.
Yeah.
We're not doing this for a living.
Mm-hmm.
We aren't hunting for a living. We're not making our living from YouTube. And the money that comes in from YouTube, it mostly pays for computers, cameras, our hunting equipment. Most of it goes right back in, and then a little bit of spending cash. So there was never enough money coming in from YouTube, especially after several years ago when there was a big crash in the revenue.
Mm-hmm.
There's no way we could legitimately make a reason to do this for a living on YouTube alone. You would have to go out and you would have to get some type of extra revenue. You would either have to create a product.
Mm-hmm.
You would either have to be a salesman of some type, or be a billboard.
Yeah.
And we didn't want to do that.
Yeah.
And every time, if you want to do that, I've talked to so many companies in the hunting industry that's like, but we want you to sign right here for this, just in case. And it's like, no, because if we want to be able to put whatever we want, because that's just a little dot on a path downwards that we don't want to go.
Yeah.
And we all have stable full-time jobs.
Mm-hmm.
And so we're not going to just leave that and just go for it. I mean, there's a lot of people who go, hey, just if you want that, do it. You just got to quit everything and just go for it.
It's easy to say if you don't have families and house mortgages.
There's a lot of people who are saying that now who have been in the industry their entire lives. It's easy for them to say that.
Yeah.
For somebody who has a wife and kids, extra priorities, maybe they're strapped for cash, to say, hey, just pick yourself up by the bootstraps, be that guy and just go do it. I really reel back on that.
Mm-hmm.
And because I don't know, I'm just coming from a completely different worldview, a completely different viewpoint of that, being that we have tried to push that out, and it's so easy to get in.
Yeah.
It's actually easy to get in if you did that. When we were single, we had all the time in the world. We could
sure.
But if we wanted to be in the outdoor industry, what would have probably happened, and I've seen this a lot of other places of people that I know that are in the industry, what ends up happening is you start with a bunch of people that help create it, and then it starts whittling those people out, down, and there's always going to be bad blood or bridges burned somewhere down along the road. That's just on that aspect. Take that into the personal level, which 90% of the people do not see unless it somehow comes out on the news, on social media, and everything flies around. That you have things that happen in your personal life that happens that you're struggling with because, in my opinion, priorities are not lined up right.
Sure.
So that's where we have tried to keep a level head and just said, we're just doing this for fun.
Yeah.
The money that comes in, mostly it goes back in. If it shuts down and YouTube demonetizes us, because that's another thing, they can just go,
yeah, we don't control anything.
And then I had a video 5 years ago where almost all my videos were demonetized. Had to go back in and make an appeal for each one of those. And it's just like, we're going to keep doing it regardless until they start deleting our videos. Then we'll find somewhere else to make the videos. So that's where we're at right now with YouTube.
I mean, dude, I don't even know if there is a, you guys obviously had a start. So, I mean, you at least reached a place where you're like, could make a decision. Do we want to pursue this or not? Like, it doesn't seem to be an intentional thing. Like most people that you see being successful, like just in any sort of like hunting content or whatever, it was never because they're like, hey, I'm going to start this channel. I'm going to do this and this and that. Those guys are out there and they, unfortunately, like we know some of them, like they struggle for a long time. And most of them, if they hang on long enough, it's because they have like a very stable income source or, or
somewhere
from
else
money or something like that.
Yeah.
And they inevitably, it's like they do it for a period of time because it's like, it's fun. It was been a dream of theirs. And then it kind of falls off. So like, I don't know if there is like a perfect, David Blanton, when we talked to him this morning, was maybe the closest that I've ever heard to as far as like hunting for a living. And it's because he literally got hired by Bill Jordan to
be able to
produce hunting content for Realtree. And
that was it. That was the point of his job. One guy to please.
Yeah.
That's it.
It's the closest I've ever heard, but beyond that, I don't know. Like if somebody were to ask us, like how do, and they do, I guess, right? We run into people all the time, like on Instagram and stuff. They're like, I have this channel and I really want to do this. And I'm like, I encourage all of it. I'm like, yeah, absolutely. Like do it. If it resonates with people and like they view it, maybe there's some way to monetize that down the road. Like not that has to be the goal even, but if it is. So it's an interesting, perplexion, like, cause Jeremy and I didn't do this.
No, we have full-time jobs
to make money or to, I think our nature was like, we wanted to, whether this was the first thing or not, we wanted to have some impact.
Yep.
I don't think that was first. I think
first was we were doing it anyways and just not, like we would just sit for 2 hours in the morning and bullshit instead of do work.
Yeah. Well, so I used to work for Jeremy. I worked for Jeremy for 7 years.
Yep.
For Stone Road Media's marketing company. And he hired me out of college to do that because I'm 9 years behind Jeremy. And then he and I just developed a friendship and like would start to hunt kind of together or separate. At the very least, we were in the office every day. Like, dude, what's going on?
Talking
like,
about the
camera check. It's all we did. Like I would find any excuse to not work and just come out and just talk to Jeremy about hunting. And then at some point I was like, we got tired of his clients not having content, like any video, anything to like roll over their advertisements that they were paying him to do. So I'm going to take credit for it probably.
Sure.
I was like, dude, why don't we do that? Like here would be an opportunity. We can go out and film this stuff. And like, it could be like our excuse to just be in the field more, and
which is what I was looking for.
And so we kind of did that. It was like show, right? That was the idea. We're like, let's film it. Kills on film.
The show was the feature. Like the podcast was not even on the radar. It was like, we're going to make a hunting show. Right. Yeah. Let's do it. We've got the production. I've got a team that
we had
works
enough
for
contacts
us.
At that point that we're like, we could probably pull this off. We could get in front of the right people at least, And then it turned out like we just suck at filming hunting shows. We don't hunt enough. We don't enjoy filming. Or haven't in the past.
It sucked a lot of the fun up because it wasn't that like there was an expectation of product that I think people would expect to come out of it because of the marketing background and who we had relationships with from a client side, that it was like, boy, this is going to be a lot more work than we thought. And we kind of just want to hunt and enjoy it.
Yeah. And there was some of like, oh, we don't live in Iowa. That kind of happened too. Like it's like, we're not going to see a giant every time we go.
Yeah.
So the podcast was like, in the meantime, we're like, I mean, dude, we're doing this anyways, like sitting here for hours just talking about it. That can be a nice supplement to like a production that we, at some point. And so we struggled with that for a while and like, kind of lost some cameramen type of it or tried to figure out how to do that along the way. And eventually we're just like, dude, we just don't like the filming thing. Like it was just a challenge for us. And it's not like we were out filming each other every day or each other all the time anyways. Like we had our full-time jobs at that point and we had wives at least. Jeremy's got kids. So the podcast kind of became, and then people started watching it and we're like, it's resonating with
Let's
some
do
people here.
this.
Like, this is kind of interesting. Like, and
it's easy. Like, here we are doing
Sure.
it right now.
Our nature is like, dude, what would you rather? It's like, if you could pick one thing to do today, it's like, I could just sit around with the dudes that care about are passionate about hunting. And like, so it's like, and it's not our job. So, I mean, to say it's a dream job would be like misguided, but it's like, cause we still have multiple other jobs like that this is
piecemeal it.
Yeah. And I mean, today, it's like we do have some partners strategically. We've really been intentional about trying to align because I want to promote good brands. I want to,
Sure.
I don't want to be a billboard by any means, but I do want to have strong partnerships with companies that we believe in, share similar ideologies and stuff. And so what you said earlier resonated with me when you're talking about you were inspired by people's demand for it.
Yeah.
So we have had enough of, we're in our 4th year, I think, of doing the podcast, and it's grown, kind of a life of its own. And there has been enough people at a distance and close to us that have been like, you guys you're killing me by not showing us what you guys are doing, like filming and stuff. So recently we got kind of a second wind to be like, well, okay. You know what I mean? We resisted it pretty hard there in the beginning, but so for this year here now, I mean, we're not going over the board with it. It's just we're filming.
We talked about it. We're filming phones. We're just showing the in the field stuff we talk about during the podcast. Now you can actually see what we're talking about.
And I'm excited about it again. To know that people are like, they've kept up with us just talking about it to this point. So now to get to share it, I feel like an obligation. I feel like convicted to be like, we need to start filming this stuff.
I actually felt that too, because I'd hear somebody talking about something about this big buck, and you could see you guys looking at the camera or your phones.
Yeah,
and it's like, just put it on the screen so everybody can see.
I know. Like it's a big secret.
Just like me showing you that buck just now from this one on the table, and it's like, boy, if they had a way to just do a 2-second overlay on this. But I mean, I think you guys are doing it the right way. I mean, you guys are very professional. You guys have.
I don't know about that.
Are you watching the right podcast?
No. I think it really does. I think
we just painted the walls black. That's why I like.
You got to realize, in today, if we were to start a YouTube channel today, doing the things that we do today, we would not be anywhere today.
It's a lot different landscape.
We are only popular, and I think, like I said, that second channel sort of fizzled away because then it's kind of like, oh, really? I should just be putting everything on one channel. But then at some point in time, you can't really change.
There was quite a few subscribers though on that second channel.
Right?
Right?
70,000 on our second channel, and we maybe put one video on there a year.
Wow!
And then we're at 270,000 on our main channel.
Wow!
And that's in a time where we're only uploading less than 10 videos a year.
Yeah,
maybe. I mean,
I mean, historically, like, dude, we talked about it when we were going to get the truck and stuff. Like, I'll still go back and watch some of the first videos that I found of you guys, just because, like, they were at the time, like, nobody else was doing that kind of stuff, like your Flintlock stuff.
Well, and we'd also talked about that because it's like you have the recurve stuff. Now it's gained big popularity in recent years.
It has.
You know what I mean? But it's like I've done that all my life.
Yeah.
That was since I was 8 years old. I shot a recurve. I never shot a compound. You know what I mean? So it was like, I feel like, so there was things that we done whenever we started doing this, and it wasn't even on purpose, but it set us apart from other people, whether it was the Flintlocks, whether it was the recurves, whether it was
rattlesnake stuff eventually.
Yeah, the oddball stuff. You know what I mean? Everyone was going out filming turkey hunts, filming deer hunts. But that was it, you know.
So you guys stood out differently. Like, what do you know what your audience looks like? Because obviously we're here in Western PA, we're 2 hours apart. Like, I would assume there's people from a pretty wide audience coming to watch your stuff, not just PA people, right?
Oh no, all over the world.
Yeah, wow.
I mean, our highest viewed video is about to cross over into 19 million views. And they're mostly all around the world views.
Is that the one when you did the frontier thing?
It's the one that I miss a deer in, and it's the most popular video.
Like, I don't know.
Everybody
a lot in the Philippines here for some reason.
because of it.
Isn't that funny?
And some of these are like from Brazil, India, countries I don't even know the names of. And they probably think that that's how people I'm talking about, if people don't know, I'm talking about a period correct. I'm dressed in 18th century deer, and I'm shooting at deer with a flintlock, and they probably think that's how Americans hunt.
Probably.
Now. But
that's amazing.
Yeah,
I really hope that's.
There's probably people in Pennsylvania that think that's how people hunt right now.
But because of that diversification. Like you said, if you could do it in Pennsylvania, we were doing it. Trapping videos, ice fishing, you name it. And if you didn't see it, doesn't mean that we weren't trying to do it in behind. Like I said, we don't have a bear hunt. I have a coyote that I shot offhand with a spotlight.
It's kind of interesting you say you don't have bear hunt, because I mean, how many times, like I just watched one the other day where you guys were like walking down the road and there's like a black bear just comes out and is looking at you.
Where we're at.
The HUNTR Podcast is brought to you by Hoyt.
What can we say, man? Another year back with Hoyt. We're both shooting RX8s. I'm shooting 70 pounds in the bourbon, which I love bourbon.
That's great.
And you're shooting 80 pounds in the straight black.
Blacked out as always, man. I got so I'm shooting the 500 grain Easton Arrow this year. And at 80 pounds, I'm flinging that thing at like 300 feet per second. I mean, it's deadly. Put a water buffalo in front of me and he's done.
I mean, we shot it earlier. You literally put an arrow through a brand new target, like never been shot before.
I know. So one other thing that Hoyt is doing this year is they're making all their own strings in-house. And so the quality is top notch, and it just really is something that is setting them apart from their competitors.
Well, what we always try to do when we go to our bow shop, Ultimate Outdoors, is we try to shoot other bows just to make sure that we are really giving everybody a fair chance. Sure. The reality is it's a no-brainer. Hoyt stands above all of them every single time.
Definitely. And so right now you can use code HUNTR, HUNTR, for 20% off any apparel on the Hoyt website. And as always,
get serious, get Hoyt.
And this kind of goes into another subject of maybe why we have so many deer. People think that we're just hunting on a deer farm, think that we're just cheating the system.
Why don't you talk about that? Like, so, don't have to say like exactly where you're hunting, but what do you guys...
into the wildlife that we have.
Okay.
So Pennsylvania in general is a very diverse state.
Yep.
I mean, when you look at different parts, northeast, southeast, central, south central, everything is its own little state.
Yep.
When you think of Iowa or you think of a certain place in another state, you have that. You can go in almost in every part of that state and think that sort of looks similar.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And so you have north central PA, you have the Allegheny Mountains.
Yep.
Then right below that, you have the Appalachians that curves down through. Okay?
Yep.
That's the Ridge and Valley system.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And when you cross over into eastern PA, you have very little natural gas and oil.
Yep.
Okay. So that goes clear up into McKean and the whole way down into where we're at here, southwest, Fayette and Washington. So where we're at, we were at one point in time, number one, Clarendon County was at one point in time, number one for iron ore in the world at one point in time. We have big giant furnaces. And when I'm not talking for decades, maybe for a few years. Iron ore being shipped down Red Bank to the Allegheny down to Pittsburgh.
Yep.
And then we have like every hilltop is stripped of coal.
Yep.
Natural gas drilling all over the place. Marcellus, and then the small conventional wells.
Yep.
And all those things, coupled with the fact that we don't just have like north central, and they're not really mountains, they're more like canyons.
Yep.
It's Allegheny Plateau. It's flat and drops down in. We have, and I was just looking at this not long ago. We're in WMU 2D. Okay. So we are at 25% agriculture, 75% or a little less wooded. And then we have higher than most surrounding areas of what would be considered maybe disturbed land. The hills and valleys where we hunt have so many different hiding places. There's benches. It's not just a straight hillside. It's a hill that drops down a bench, and then a bench, and then a bench.
Because of what was done to that land in the past.
Strip jobs.
Yep.
Forestry. There's so much natural resources, land disturbance that have created so many different pockets and little things for deer to hide and live, coupled with the fact that the second you cross out of Armstrong County into Clarendon County, you have entered the PA wilds. When people think PA wilds, they think elk.
Yeah.
Think big woods.
Yep.
Where we're at, we're not quite considered, we don't look like we're in big woods territory. But there's sections of big woods and old woods that are sometimes more mature than stuff in north central PA, and it's bordering just surrounded by farmland.
Yeah.
Soybeans, corn, everything.
Yeah.
So and it's so strange is that 6 years ago, we were given in WMU 2D, we were given 55,000 doe tags. This year, 102,000.
You're kidding me.
We have the highest deer kill in any management unit in Pennsylvania, and we live smack dab in the center of it. When you cross over 80 into northern Clarendon County, that becomes 2F.
Yep, which sells out
It's
right away.
Completely different. Clarendon County is completely different. Even when the antler restrictions first came in, Clarendon County in that western half was 4 points on the side. The rest of the state was 3 points.
Yep.
Now
that.
it is northern Clarendon County is 3 points on the side. You can count the brow tine. Where we're at,
3 high.
you can't count the brow tine.
Yeah.
There's a reason for that. Because once you cross into 2F, you're looking at 80% forest land.
Yeah.
Up to, or maybe even higher than that.
Yep.
There's very little agriculture, so the deer population is lower. And they're only getting maybe 45. I can't remember, but it's not very much. It's one of the lowest.
Yeah, it's one of the ones that sells out in the first week or so.
First day.
Yeah.
So now when you look down here at, are you guys in 2A, 2C?
We're 2C here.
I'm
Okay,
2B.
you're like
just
right
on
on
Oh,
there.
so you
You're-
guys still have a pile of tags left over
Yep.
too.
So
then.
you guys went up.
2B does.
We're
as
on the
well.
line.
Yeah.
So 2C is where you're at, which includes the mountain. 2A is going
Yes.
towards Washington and
Okay.
Green.
Are we at like a?
Yep, and 2B is
Because I'm
to
in
the
2B
north.
where I live.
Yeah, that's
Washington.
Pittsburgh one.
2A is up to
Why
93,000.
Pittsburgh's all 2B?
Yep.
I thought it was 2D.
No,
No.
B.
No.
They're in
2B.
B.
We come, I mean,
2D's got to be close.
2D is big.
It's like
we
Murraysville
we
area?
go from Butler,
Yep.
clear up to Franklin, the whole way clear over almost to DuBois, and
Yep.
you ride an 80 almost.
How far southwest?
Then you go the whole way down. Well, southwest.
You're in
it kinda-
Armstrong,
It comes
right?
down to a
Yeah.
point.
Uh-huh.
So it comes down sort of at an angle. So it comes down along and splits Indiana County.
Uh-huh.
Comes
And
right along
Westmoreland.
Indiana. And
It's in
it has
Westmoreland,
a
for
little
sure.
tiny bit of Westmoreland.
Yep.
The only county that's completely covered in that unit is Armstrong County. So, and then you come up around into Sarver and back up
That's
into
right. Because
Butler.
that's close to where I grew up. Was
Yep.
on that 2B, 2D
So
line.
that has, and I'm not saying that is the size of it. But when you look at, let's say, 2C, I believe there's 4 times more public land in 2C.
Oh,
than
absolutely.
2D.
We're mostly. I mean, we've got all of Forbes State Forest down here.
Right.
We've got multiple large game lands down here.
Right, and so you have less doe tags there. But when you cross over into southwest into 2A, now you're up to what, 93,000 this
There's
year?
a ton, and it's a
So-
lot of private.
But when you look back, I can't remember what the management units were, but there were some management units that haven't really jumped that much. But 2D has made almost a double in their doe allocations. And
Because they're trying to kill more does.
They're trying to
which
kill
we've
more
had
does.
this conversation with a bunch of people, and it's like just by allocating more doesn't mean you're going to kill more.
Clarendon County was one of the top 4 counties in the state for Lyme's disease. Clarendon County was also one of the worst counties for forest regeneration. So I'm getting ready to log my family's property.
How big is it?
We have around 260 acres.
Okay.
The whole top of the hill of that was stripped of coal, so you can cut that in half.
Yeah.
Then we have a farm, and with all family property, and most of that's all fields. It's all been strip jobbed. My farm is
We
part of
talked
that.
about the cattle
115
farming.
115 acre farm with maybe 5 acres of woods on it. It borders that, and it covers like 600 acres with family, and that's family that comes up from Florida, family that comes from Maryland. We have relatives from Erie that come down to hunt, Pittsburgh. All hunt that, and most of it's fields. My cousin lives 3 miles from me, from his camp, just in the field. From his camp, he counted 75 doe last year. That's not even a mile.
Jeez.
Now, a lot of that has to do with all it takes is one property owner that has 30 acres or so to not doe hunt, and it becomes a doe factory. So I got 6 doe tags this year. I've never killed more than 4 in a season. I can kill 7 with my Flintlock converted into a doe. So I'm planning on whacking doe right off the bat. And this guy
Whacking doe
is out there.
Yeah.
And I don't care.
Good chance those 6 or 7 won't even make a dent, though.
Possibly.
Can you get?
I'm most likely. I'm thinking about actually probably fencing in some places. I can't fence the whole place in. That's ridiculous. But I'm going to have to find some places that have like good oak flats and stuff like that, because
there's no regeneration.
And my property hasn't been logged since probably the late 30s, early 40s.
It's going to make a giant improvement on that place.
What are you talking about fencing in?
For deer fence.
For regeneration areas.
Oh.
Yep. Do you ever see, like, if you ever gone up in the mountain and you walk into like a big high fence in the middle of the woods, they're fencing that off to do regeneration.
Wow.
Yeah, you see the difference up there. When we go up and we rattlesnake up, and especially where there's elk, I mean, they're covering a couple 100 acres in high fence, and you should just see how thick it is on the outside.
Nothing. Ferns.
Can you get DMAP tags up there?
Yeah, some of my family do have DMAP tags, and I could probably get tags too, but I just never messed with it.
Well, I mean, if you have that many doe license allocated that they're not ever going to run out, just buy them.
I want to believe if a guy, like, you could be pretty efficient. If you had, can you hunt at night with DMAP tags?
No, that's the red tags.
Can you get red tags?
That's the crop damage tags. You got to have crop damage for that.
Do you have crop damage?
I do farming, but I quit crops. I quit planting corn because the deer was just and I don't plant enough to even. I think you have to have so many.
You do.
I'm a small.
I don't know how many acres
I'm a hobby farmer, really.
I mean, I'm just trying to figure out, like, if you really, and it sounds like you might be on the verge of it, is like to try to diagnose a severe overpopulation. Like, I want to believe you could kill 10 or 15 in a night.
Well, let's
at night, like if you could thermal them and stuff.
Let's rewind a little bit, right? So we talk about when you guys got started. Obviously, 2000 was when our concurrent buck doe season happened. I mean, tell us about, like, when you guys were growing up and hunting in like the late 90s, early 2000s. Was the herd composition similar to what you're seeing now, or has it changed a lot?
Oh, I think that there was a lot more then.
You think there were more deer?
Oh, yeah. I mean, I can remember some of the first days of buck season. If you didn't see 100 deer, you had a bad day.
Wow.
Yeah.
But now you're talking, you see a herd of 15, 20, 25 doe, 11 o'clock in the morning, you're like,
yeah,
there was a buck with them this morning. He's dead.
He's
already.
dead now.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And stuff like that. But as far as from then to now, there's a lot more posted property.
Mm-hmm.
And I think those deer know that.
Yeah.
And it's like, obviously, I mean, they know where it's safe at. They're going to a guy that's hunting in a jack shack in a field edge somewhere and
just burying himself in.
Yeah. Not moving for the rest of the season.
So that's where you're seeing the multiplication continue to happen.
Summer comes out, they disperse to different crop fields all over the place, and as soon as the first day of deer season comes in, majority of the guys are buck hunting, not shooting at does. Those first couple shots ring out.
Because man, I remember clearly, like, prior to the concurrent, right? Like our 3 day doe season. It was like Vietnam.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
It was fun as hell, too.
I have a video of me 12 years old with my dad behind the camera, okay? And we're out in the middle of a field. And the farmer said, just sit out in the middle of this open field. I'm like, what? And like, yeah, they just run from one property to the other. And
they did.
There were bullets flying. You can hear the shots in the background, boom, boom. And at one point in time, it's not on camera, but I heard 2 ricochets that day. Okay, 2 ricochets zoom, over my head, and doe come out, and I go to lay on my dad's backpack. Barrel goes right in the mud. So we had to half break the gun apart.
We're done, John. We're going home.
Clean the whole gun out. Then we kept inching up the field, and here comes 5 or 6 of them running out in the field. And Dad's just like, now. I'm like, they're running. And I just remember sitting down, a 12-year-old sitting, shooting like this, and somehow I hit one at like 100 yards.
Yeah,
and dropped it. It's all on camera, and that's the way deer hunting was.
That season, we've had the conversation of like, how do we kill more does? That season, my first year when I was 12, my cousin and I both turned 12 that year. My other cousin was 13. There's 3 of us lined up with my dad. The other 7 guys were bringing a valley drive over. Okay, so we're just lined up there. My dad's kind of talking to us, and I'm like, yeah, I think I hear something. He's like, no, you know, dude, I'm talking 40, 50 deer come up over that hill, and it's just boom, 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 boom. So I had a 12 gauge in slugs, right? It's my first year, open sights. I shoot 3, I'm reloading, I'm shooting. My cousins are shooting 30-30s, you know, and like
the Wild West.
I'm done. When we were done, the 3 of us had shot 21 times, and I shot one button buck right here in the head with a slug. That was it. There was no blood anywhere. There was nothing else dead. Like, that was the only thing we got. But, like, number one, it was unbelievable, like, fun. But I remember how many people were killing does at that time because none of us even thought about a buck.
Because you had a doe season.
You had a doe season. We weren't even thinking about it. And then, like, when concurrent happened, I remember it was so weird to be like, 10 shots go off, and I'm like, was it a buck? Was it a doe? Like, should I be ready? Am I shooting a doe today? Like, I had no idea what to do.
Yeah.
No, it was the same. Like you said, you had the 2 weeks of buck season. It's like you heard a shot go off within 100 or 200 yards. You got your gun off your shoulder, picked it up, and you're like,
he's coming.
He might have made it. He's coming. He could, and it's like now you hear a shot go off, and it's like, well, and where we hunt, like you kind of know where people are at. You still know where guys hunt at or where they're located. And it's like, well, I know he's shooting doe today. First day, he only got today to hunt. He has
he's shooting 5, the first 6, thing 7 that comes tag. Through. He's shooting anything. Not that it couldn't have been a buck, but it's also like there's I kind of feel like an excitement that's changed. You know what I mean? Because before, being able to hunt then, like whenever someone was shooting, whenever it was just buck season, you got excited. You know what I mean? And now it's like,
my bad.
It might not be a buck. You know what I mean?
Well, so when we talk about the deer numbers, and like we still have really good deer numbers in 2C, and I've got 28 acres on the mountain that borders some public and stuff. But the last 2 years that I've taken my kids out, I could count the number of shots I've heard on one hand. Yeah. And growing up, if I heard less than 100 shots before 8:30 a.m., something was wrong. Like that they weren't moving. We better start driving type of thing. Now it's like, I don't hear anybody shoot. And I'm like, I don't know. Is it because nobody's out? They're not seeing deer? Like people aren't moving them? Like, I don't know. Like it's such a different game than it was 20 years ago in this state.
Yeah. I think from a buck standpoint, you got way more buck getting killed in bow season now.
Absolutely.
That those guys aren't out rifle hunting and shooting.
Yeah, especially with the crossbow side.
Yeah,
right?
absolutely.
Like all of those guys only had gun season.
60%, I think is what 60% of bucks in Pennsylvania now are getting killed with a bow. You know what I mean? It's like
all bucks are in archery season.
Of the bucks being killed in PI, I believe it's 60% or somewhere. So you're taking over half the population of buck hunters. Probably back in the day,
Absolutely.
You know what I mean? That you were here shooting.
I was sure it was like under 30% back in the day.
Yeah, easily.
Yep. Did you know? Sorry, not to take it out of PA. Do you know that more deer in Ohio are killed with archery equipment than guns? Firearms?
Oh, I completely.
It's crazy.
That. Yeah, am I right about it? Is it 70%?
70% that are killed with archery equipment.
Or is it 70% of the archery harvest is crossbow?
It's 70% of the archery harvest is crossbow.
But for sure, more than half of it is killed with.
There's a lot of crossbows.
But you're also taking into consideration what's Ohio have just a 1 week gun season, and then they have a special season come in, and then they have a week-long muzzleloader season after. Yeah. Whereas bow comes in. Is it in Ohio now?
No, this Saturday through February.
Yeah, I was going to say. So, and then allowed baiting on top of that. You know what I mean? It's like now. To me, there with baiting, it's good probably early and late season, but I don't know.
Yeah, in the middle.
Well, yeah, and I guess more so on the dynamic of how many guys are. What shifted there? I guess that's what kind of spurred
that. It's the archery thing that has really shifted people out of gun season.
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
It's shifted them into the archery season, which is more favorable conditions. They have more time to be able to do it, and that has taken more people out of a concentrated gun season, which basically forced you to kill something because your time was limited.
Yeah.
It completely changed the dynamic. I mean, just the thought process of rifle hunting versus bow hunting, even with a crossbow, is different.
Yep.
It's very different. You know?
Yeah.
The HUNTR Podcast is brought to you by Lone Wolf Custom Gear.
Man, Jared, we are tree stand fanatics, and I think the one thing that we have learned over all these years is to kill big bucks, we got to be mobile. We've been hunting out of Lone Wolves for many years, the original Lone Wolf, and then obviously with the custom gear stuff, we're using the .5 and the .75. Yeah. And the one thing that we talked about is like, what if there were no cables? here we are.
I really just don't know how you can beat it, frankly. But, a lot of that came, too, from a relationship that we've built with the DePustos. We've had both Cody and Andre on the podcast a few times. The passion for hunting, the outlook on the sport and stuff, I think is eye to eye with how we look at it. Everything that has gone into building this brand and to building these tree stands is something that we want to be a part of.
This is the 40th anniversary of these guys creating tree stands that have been critical to how we hunt whitetail deer today. If you look over the past, you'll see Andre's designs being implemented across so many stands over the years. Such a cool thing, but really has changed the way that we all hunt whitetail deer from above now.
Right now, you can use code HUNTR, HUNTR, to get 7% off anything on the entire website. Be the lone wolf.
Another issue, and you guys talked about it recently, nobody's killing doe.
None.
Yeah.
So that's a big issue. Everybody wants to wait. I got time. We got such more doe season. We got the extra early muzzleloader season. We got time. And the problem is, even the second day is like those deer are already shot at or being bumped by so many guys in the woods that they just lay low. They're like, I ran into too many people. I'm not moving for a day. And then through the middle of the week, unless you're able to get out in the middle of the week, you can go in the woods and nobody's out there.
Yeah.
You got a whole bunch of days and they get up on a buck that maybe your neighbor's watching is finally on your property. And you're
still
going to
feel
get
that way?
it.
You still feel like midweek you're not seeing guys?
Oh, yeah.
Really?
If you go back through my videos and watch me sneak up on bucks from all through the second week, mostly the second week of rifle season, and then look at how many bucks I could have killed in muzzleloader season.
You're talking about during gun season.
I could kill more bucks in the middle of the second week of rifle and in late flintlock season than I could have the whole year of the early archery season.
Yeah.
So I think there's a big problem is listen, bucks are easy to kill with a bow. If they weren't, people wouldn't be going there. People would not be flocking to the early archery season if it wasn't easy to kill a buck. You have more bucks.
Yep.
You have less pressure.
Yep.
You got your chance at the big one, unless you know it gets shot. Okay, so after rifle season,
more favorable weather.
You guys said it. After
Sure, you got
rifle
more people
season,
out doing it.
Yeah.
deer season's over. And I think if you want to become a better archery hunter, you need to be out there in that time frame between the end of season, which most people think is rifle season, be in that flintlock season, and before shed hunting season. So most people are like, oh, I'm not even going in the woods till February, till the bucks start dropping here. That Christmas and January is the time that most people are not. That's like the dead zone. Like
people think the
need to
season's
scout.
over at that point.
So you go in there and you find, and I've said it all the time, if you want to kill buck, you don't really need to go anywhere or anything. If you need to know your property, and there's a lot of people that say, oh, I know my property like the back of my hand. I know every ridge and bump. Okay, well, where do the deer go? If I were to bump them over here, where are they going to go? Well, they don't know.
They don't know.
And that's with getting on the ground, not getting in a stand. You see a lot of me sitting in a stand on opening day. I can't walk around or I'm just going to push deer off the property. We're just hunting a whole hillside.
Yeah.
And because it's big open woods, you bump a deer, they're running a half mile. They're not stopping.
Yeah, they're gone.
And by the end of the day, all the deer are basically pushed off the property or so we basically said, my brother walks around. Most of the guys, they might just walk around just to get warmed up back in their stand. But that middle of the week, second, you get back in there, them deer are coming back out and they're showing themselves and they're still in rut. I'm seeing deer chasing does like crazy. I had this buck right here. I saw him and he was at 100 yards and I was watching a doe and I was trying to use a big tree to get behind me, put that big tree between me and the doe. Well, I thought it was a doe, but I wasn't sure. So I was trying to see how close I could get. And I just looked out through the woods and I didn't see anything. And as I'm moving, my eyes are on the deer. And then I hear, shoo, look over. And this guy with another one almost a little bit smaller than him and two other bucks just go busting up.
Oh.
So I know my property real well and what the deer want to do. And you got to do that in the late season. I know in the late season, it's like everything's dead, everything's open. So they're going to go find what you may not see as thick.
Yeah.
There's no snow. Wait until the most deadest, coldest part of the year and see where those deer go.
Well, like I know you see them a lot under hemlocks and stuff in that thermal cover.
But there's also parts where those deer know, and I know also, that if they go there, I can't get to them.
Yep.
And I don't bump them out. There are actual places that I have tried for years that the way my land lays, the wind is swirling all the time. Everyone talks about the wind. I'm like, I can't, because every time I'm in there, the wind is constantly changing, swirling, everything. So it's hard for me to even play the wind anyways. But I know what the deer do being bumped all the time. People just need to go out there and bump deer.
Yeah.
People are so just sitting in one spot, so accustomed to find a trail, find the rubs, find a stand.
Well, that's what cell
sit
cameras
and
have
wait.
broke, especially.
So I'm constantly like, I know where these deer are going to go. I got to do what most people don't want to do, is you got to walk a half-mile weird, odd loop, and people go, what in the world? Why would you do that? And I can't explain that in a video. I can't show that in a video. That's the hard part, is because, like, I don't have the time to edit this graphic to show the lay of the land and what I did. And I came in from the backside, and I bumped one deer. I know exactly where those deer are going to go next. So I did another big half circle, and I'm coming through, and right where I stopped to videotape myself, talk about seeing this big buck, there he is standing right where I was standing about a half hour ago. And I just see his rump behind the tree. And I'm like, he already sees me, because his head's behind the tree, but I know he already saw me. I was standing right along the creek, holding on to branches so I didn't fall in the creek, because, I could walk from here to the door and be on flat level ground, but I know I'm going to be 6 feet higher than that.
You'll be exposed the whole time.
Exposed.
Yeah.
And he still caught me, and I know all he did was see my hat. I thought, I know he saw me. So I have my camera, and I set the manual focus. I have the tripod, and I just start slowly moving like this and weeding through all that brush. And I'm looking, I'm looking through a little LCD screen, just like this camera right here. This is exactly the same kind of camera almost. And I'm thinking, there's no way. That's got to be all branches. And then I see that little drop tine, and I'm like, oh, man, that's him. And when we stood this showdown, and I couldn't squeeze a bullet anywhere through that stuff. It looks open on the video, but there's no way to make an ethical shot. And so when he come out the other side, he just kind of trotted. I couldn't get the camera over, and he vanished. And, man, that guy he's eluded my cameras.
Well, tell us about your dad's story with him. That was this
the buck
set
that I'm
right here.
talking
Jared,
about,
pick that up, the 3-year-old set.
That buck in 2022, on opening day, my dad saw that buck with a couple other buck come up out of the hall and go up on the top of the hill. Must have bedded right between my dad and my cousin. Nobody's walking around, getting close to evening. He come down through. This buck walks right past my trail camera 5 minutes before he comes out into the field. About 200-yard shot. My dad out of the deer shanty takes a shot with a 30-06. Deer goes straight down. So he's instantly on the walkie-talkie. I got him. I got that one big heavy beam buck that I just saw this morning. I said, awesome. I said, I'm out of my stand. I'm coming up. And because the year before, my dad just killed his very first buck.
I remember watching that video.
My dad come from my dad and my grandfather were taxidermists. So my dad knew what a big buck was.
Yeah.
I mean, he knew what 130s, 140s, 150s were. And he always went to the big woods up north central because he said they need age. He knew this back in the 80s and 90s. So he never killed anything. He was letting stuff that people see that are average, good 2-year-old, even small 3-year-old bucks, he's letting them go. And we're like hounding him, just kill a deer, until he finally killed that one in 2021.
Which is a good 8-point, right?
Yeah, it was a really good 8-point. It was actually we believe it was a 4-year-old. He didn't really gain an inch from 3 to 4. He had a broken ear, and that's the only reason I knew it was him. I had one picture of him from the year before, but he was staying almost a mile and a half away, and he came in rifle season and came off the top of the hill. So this buck comes out. I go, and we see a little tiny line of blood on the ground. And I'm like, wait a minute. I'm like, My dad's like, where's he at? Where's he at? Where's he at? And you can see where he laid the goldenrods over. I said, okay, start looking for blood. And I see a little tiny streak of blood and a little pin drop. So I'm like parsing the goldenrods, looking and finding a drop of blood every 20, 30 feet. And I'm like, this is
not a good feeling.
And my dad's jumping ahead of me.
Oh,
you
yeah.
know, he's not. This would be his second buck. So I've been around a lot of guys tracking, and it's just like you want to keep going, but you know, I think I lost blood, but that has to be his track going there. And then you're like, oh wait a minute.
Then you get off course, and
So I'm like making markers and stuff, and we get to my trail camera. Like he come by my trail camera, so I'm looking real quick, and I'm like, oh, that's him. I don't know where he came from. I don't remember seeing him the year before or anything like that. So the next day, everybody just looked for him. Couldn't find him anywhere. I put trail cameras out, went flintlock hunting. I seen a couple bucks that were nice that I had known from rifle season and even earlier, but not as big as him. Then my brother, he likes to just camp in the middle of the woods and take walks and hikes through the woods. It was February. Him and a bunch of friends are just walking through the woods on one of our logging roads, and that one of those sheds was just laying there.
Jeez.
Now, during that time, I had not been shed hunting very much because of my daughter just started having kids. And so I was like getting 10 minutes to run through the property real fast. And I was finding like a shed every 5 minutes in places that were all logged out. Out of this 30-acre piece, I'll have to show you a picture of it. It's just peppered with antlers. And the rest of the property has like a dot here and a dot there. For 3 years after that was logged, all those bucks, I found 4 sheds in one spot.
Jeez.
So these bucks were just dropping her, and I was still missing them. I was finding them the year after and the year after. So that's where he was going. And he was just staying out on the outskirts of that because I was probably going in there picking up all the sheds too early. I don't have shed hunting competition, so I should have just stayed out of there.
Right. So he was still holding.
So I could have been bumping him out.
Yeah.
But he was still wanting to be back in there.
Yep.
And then I go into camp. Every time I find a shed, I put it on the counter, on the table in at camp, and I come in and I see that shed. And I'm like, I didn't find that.
Yeah, that's a giant.
I'm like, where did that come from? So I run up to my brother's place and I said, hey, what's with this big antler on the table down there? He goes, oh yeah, we're just walking. We found it. Like it's no big deal. He's opening day hunter, and that's about it. Yeah. So he's not a big hunter. And I said, well, did you look for the other one? No. I'm like, well, tell me
Where'd
exactly
you find
where
it?
is that? And there it was, 20.
Was it really?
20 feet from.
Jeez.
I videotaped myself finding it because I went down there. I'm like, oh, I'm going to find this thing. I know it. And so I videotaped myself finding the other side. So then I scored it. I scored him with, I suspected him to have a 17-inch spread. And I come out to 140. But now, after looking at him this year, he doesn't have that. He's maybe 14, 15 inches spread. So this is what he gained this year. He got the drop tine.
Freaking love that bladed G3.
So that would be, and we're expecting him to be at 4 years old of this. So 3 years old, 4 years old.
So let's say you're probably thinking like with that spread off 137-ish as 3.
Yeah.
And then here he's probably mid-50s.
Yeah. So this, I scored it at 171.5. My cousin scored it at 170 or
70.
71.5. He scored at 72.5 or 72 and an eighth or something.
Yep.
And his other side was bigger than this because look at how short that G2 is.
Yeah.
His G2 on the opposite side was bigger than his G3, and his G3s are always even.
Yeah, and that G3 is over 10.
So add that drop time to this and maybe another inch. He could be an inch or two more.
So yeah, he might be high 50s at that point.
Yeah. And so he's blown up.
Yeah.
With a 15-inch spread?
Yeah. You think he's 60s?
Yeah.
Yeah. He could be.
Yeah.
This year. You mean this one right here?
Right here.
I mean, it could be. It
well,
really
I was thinking if he said
spread.
72, let's even say he gave 75, that's 147 plus 15. Yeah, that'd be 62.
Yeah. And
that's what that scored. That was a 162 from here.
So that would be now out of hunting family's property for 20-some years, getting close to 30 when time goes. No, we started hunting there in 98.
Yeah, so 30, almost 30 years.
This would be the very first 5-year-old buck.
Really?
That has ever been, that we could confidently say is 5 years old.
What's that beam?
23 and 5/8.
Yep.
Now, my neighbor in 2009.
21 and 5/8 there. So you gained 2 inches on the beam from 3 to 4.
Killed a 160.
Your neighbor did?
Broken off G2, and it was a 3-year-old.
But
that was in 2009. Now, nothing has, we would say 3 years old, has ever been that big. Everything at 3 years old is the same size as this. It's always in that mid to high 130s as a 3-year-old. And we were just talking. You can tell by the mass.
Yeah.
But unless you have any type of other data to go on, you know, if it's really thin, unless you have trail cameras, like I said, my dad's
history
was at least 3. So this year he does not have the drop time, but from where my dad dropped that deer, and we don't know. So I'm seeing this deer. I can't tell where that deer's hit. We have no idea. The only thing
that's what I was going to ask. Did you see anything? Was he limping?
On a hillside. He wasn't limping either. Now, this is a whole year after.
Yeah.
But on that hillside, all I could think of is he either hit him, grazed his leg, spooked him enough that when he went to turn around, he's already on an angle of a hill.
Kind of slipped.
He kind of slipped and rolled over.
Oh, and also you said goldenrod, so that there's a depth perception kind of thing that looks weird.
Well, he came out into a food plot.
Oh, he did?
Yeah.
Okay.
Or at least I had it mowed there. So he was coming right out of that goldenrod and fell right on the edge into that goldenrod.
Yeah.
So that's where, whether it was a graze or something, but within 50 yards, we could not find it.
Yeah, I mean, if a 180 grain bullet grazed you, you'd probably fall over, too.
My dad going up there. He's at the top.
How good is your dad's account, do you think?
Oh, I know exactly what happened.
Okay. Because I know my dad's account, and it's usually it's maybe 60% of what actually happens.
60% of the time, it's every time.
Every time. Pulled up, shot, watched the deer go down, and reached over, never looked out the window, grabbed the I got him and started packing his stuff up and getting out of the stand and just waiting for me. And I'm riding on the bed of the truck.
I got him. He's dead.
He has his window down, and I'm riding on the tailgate on the back of the truck, and he's flying out across this field. And I'm looking, I'm like, I don't see this deer. He said it dropped. And I hear, where is he? Where is he? And I'm like going like this, like slow down so I can tell him. We still have another half hour of daylight. My cousin is just a couple hundred yards down there, and he's got, where is he at? I'm like, there's other hunters out here. If he's down here, we don't want to scare him. He's just flipping out. And
that's crazy, though.
So when I did see him, if you look on the video, you'll see a big bulge on his jaw. But I think that went away. I think that was from him fighting.
Or food impaction or something. We see that often. Food impactions that'll get back in there.
So,
I mean, I would have to assume that it wasn't substantial because he's got no deformities on his antlers except for a drop time, which maybe, but...
Now, here's some more kickers, and this is stuff where, like, with the videos, there's a lot of stuff that just... we don't put on video.
Yeah.
And you don't know until
it's a behind the scenes. You got to pay extra.
So back in the early muzzleloader
down the road.
Back in the early muzzleloader season, my cousin from Florida during the early muzzleloader season, he goes, I saw a huge buck with a drop with a kicker coming out the side. Well, my neighbor, just on the opposite hills from me, killed a 150 with a kicker. And I'm thinking, well, that's just a mile and a half as the crow flies. I said, that's probably the buck that you saw.
Yeah.
Then November 3rd comes, okay, last year. Now, I'm at home during the rut. I don't have time. And I'm just staring out I'm staring, because where I hunt is right out my back door. Right on the property, basically. And I can walk out the back door and start hunting. And I'm just staring out my back door because I'm just having deer constantly going through my yard. And didn't he come down through?
No, right through your yard?
November 3rd, middle of the day, 1 o'clock in the afternoon, bright sunny day, and I just catch a glimpse of him drop down over. And I'm like getting my phone out as fast as I can. I'm fumbling around, and I get one picture of him coming through like a makeshift food plot that I have, just so I can see deer behind the house. Stops, looks both ways, and my jaw just dropped and crosses the creek.
Jeez.
So I start talking to the neighbor, and he's like, oh, that's probably the buck I'm watching. So I still don't think, I'm not making a connection that it's the same deer. And so then I'm putting trail cameras everywhere. Nothing. Then he shows up middle of rifle season, right back within 100 yards from where I found these sheds. He's back in that thick stuff.
He's probably getting pressured from somewhere and knows where to go.
So he's back in the logged out place. Now we're many years, several years past since it's been logged. You can't walk through that now.
Yeah, it's a jungle.
If I know he's in there, I still ain't going to get him. I'm not going to be able to sneak through there. Briars everywhere. So that's the only place that I'm getting a camera picture of him. So then muzzleloader season comes. Never hear anybody getting them. So I'm back out again and I'm looking. And I only had 2 hours of the whole Flintlock season to hunt. And then I checked my trail camera at the end of the day, and there he was in the morning. I come after. I was just always way too behind.
So it does seem like he hangs there through gun season into the late season.
So then it's almost the end of Flintlock season. My daughter knows now when she looks out the window, it's daddy deer or mommy deer. And there's never daddy deer in the yard.
Yeah.
They're always doe. So I'm changing my son's diaper. So my son was born literally, he was born December 12th. So right after deer season, my son was born. That's why I didn't think I was even going to hunt rifle season last year. And so I'm changing his diaper, and my daughter goes, "Ooh, daddy deer, big daddy deer." And I'm like, wait a minute, what? Like, how big a daddy deer? She's like, really big. And I'm like, hold on. So I told my wife, like, watch him right now.
Just put something over him so he doesn't pee everywhere.
And there he is, bow range, right outside my bedroom window.
Wow.
Jeez.
So that's almost 3/4 of a mile from mile from where I found the shed.
Wow.
And 3/4 of a mile from where my dad hit him. So he came through there only at least once or twice.
Yeah, and that November one and then December.
So now I'm checking trail cameras, putting trail cameras everywhere. Can't get a trail camera picture of him, but I found him 50 yards behind a trail camera.
You found that shed 50 yards behind?
50 yards behind a triangle of trail cameras.
Story of all trail cameras.
So I was telling him, I was like, I have several brands. I was like, he will not go in front of this one brand of camera. I was like, but at the same time, I said, I think he spooked the trail cameras.
You've heard our discussion with a lot of these guys, especially around the cellular ones.
Was it cell camera
as
or regular
I'm coming to this knowledge that now this is the first going on to be a 5-year-old buck, the first 4-year-old that ever survived. I'm learning stuff that I have never learned before because after 3 years old, they rarely ever, we get maybe one 4-year-old every 6-7 years on the property.
Maybe.
People think we're hunting this deer ranch that have tons of big bucks, and it's like, okay, I've killed my last buck was in 2015.
It just seems like when you watch the videos from the outside, you have a lot of bucks, not necessarily old bucks or big bucks, but there's just
we have a lot of deer.
There's just a pile of deer.
There's just so many deer. It looks like we have.
So you got a pile of 1 and 2-year-olds coming through.
Sure.
90% of those bucks I never see again. I'm seeing them one time.
Just pass through and
coming in a rut. You know how a rut works.
Yep, exactly.
So
Was
learning
a cell cam or a regular cam?
regular cam.
Yeah.
So I was going in.
Can you say what it was? I kind of want to know.
He would not walk in front of my Browning trail cameras.
Huh.
But
regular camera.
Regular trail camera. Yep.
Was there anything that you noticed, like put off a color, put off a sound or anything?
No. Now the only trail camera that he'll walk, and it's still way this year. I put both Browning and the one that he walks in front of is my stealth cam.
Mm-hmm.
Just they're quarter the price of
just a regular stealth cam,
and just regular 20-some megapixel cam. I just needed something to put. It was all for him. It's just I don't care how good the quality is. I just need something out there just to get a picture. It's just
boy, there is something around those cameras with these
brand
freaking mature
specific.
deer.
It was just they were on sale at Dunham's or something.
Yeah, doesn't matter.
Yeah, that's what I got. And it's the same way with this year. I have both. I have 4 cameras, 2 Brownings, 2 stealth cams, and he will not walk in. Now I told him I forgot to turn the one. Both of I have one at 2 different.
They were
times.
both
I
off.
forgot to turn it on.
I mean,
They've been off the whole.
You have no idea
how these pictures are
mad
black.
I was when I walked up there. I'm like, somebody's playing with me. I know somebody's no, but yeah. So it's a learning thing that a lot of people watch our videos. And yeah, I hunt private, but there's people who kill bigger bucks than me, more bucks than me on public land. I want to just put that out there because I get a lot of people go, you're hunting this big, giant private property that nobody's allowed. When you look at the lay of the land. All the neighbors hunt the border also.
Mm-hmm.
We have a couple neighbors that we allow to hunt that kind of like were grandfathered in when my grandfather got the property that hunt. And we just ask the neighbors that do hunt, like, no hunting on opening day. Like, if you want to come on later, okay. But that's the way it is. So it's not, these deer get pressured.
Yeah.
They're not just whatever. They're getting pushed and panting and stuff like that.
Yeah, because, I mean, you've got a pretty thick deer camp for opening weekend,
and
right?
So nobody killed a buck last year.
Yeah. Out of how many people?
Well, you almost have to count the neighbors because we are sucked into the middle of our property.
Yeah.
And all of the corn and soybeans are everywhere around.
So they're all hunting the wood edge on the outside.
These bucks are coming over a mile into our property.
So they're long line into the food. And
the closest cornfield to my stand's about a mile away. At least it was a couple years ago, killing deer, and there's corn in them.
Yeah.
And it's like neighbors aren't killing. And the closest cornfield's a mile away.
Yeah.
And I know that's where they're coming from. And so,
or the neighbors are baiting, which could happen as well.
I don't.
Yeah, but
I know enough of the neighbors. I don't think that's happening.
Yeah.
But I think if it would be, I think there'd be a little bit different.
Sure.
Shooting going on opening day.
Good point.
But yeah, there's a lot of people around the area that are respectful. We have a good area. A lot of people go, how can you put this stuff on YouTube and not expect something bad to happen? You know.
Yeah, I was gonna say, have you had any issues with people?
Not really. No. I basically set up to watch the property on opening day anyway. So I'm not in a place, and if we have there's so many people in the woods that if somebody wants to come in that doesn't know where they're going, it will not take very long. They're going to be running into somebody.
Yeah.
And everybody knows everybody on the neighbors and stuff like that. So
yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah. And so never really have a problem. But again, our property isn't anything special.
Yeah.
Our property has nothing for the deer. It's old growth. There's nothing. You can see forever through the woods, other than me trying to put some food plots up on the hill on the old strip job that we planted pine trees on. That's it. These deer are traveling all over the place. So this deer now is staying over a mile away on my relative's property. It was logged a couple years ago.
Yep.
Now you're seeing a pattern. He has moved from the later stage logging spot and has now moved into a newer stage. But what could also be happening is he could be staying up there spring, summer, where the crops are. Nobody's in the woods spring, summer. Then when rut comes, he's moving down in and coming out.
Getting away from the pressure.
And I've seen that multiple times. My brother killed a big 136 8-point back in 2011. That buck was staying about 2.5, 3 miles away all spring and summer. Disappeared, middle of the property, shoots him on opening day with a bunch of doe.
Jeez.
I killed a big 147 in 2015. That buck was staying in a 3-mile radius. I was in my stand where I had trail camera picture of him. I had to go to my in-laws for supper. They lived two miles away. I had to get out right at prime time, right as the sun's hitting during the rut. And I'm like kicking myself, get out of the stand. Then I drive up 2 miles down the road. There he is, standing right by the road. But no, it didn't feel so bad. I got out of the stand, but I just put up the camera, and there he is, bow range, right out the truck window. But he's,
It's amazing, dude, what you can see when you get out of the stand. It's almost tempting now to be like, it is the best time, but it's also like, if you get down and scurry around, like what you're going to see. I find myself in the summer, like, because, I'm always torn. I'm like, do I want to drive around just anyways and just see what I can see, or is it worth, like, I can get a really good look at whatever's back here or a hidden field or something. I'll sit that field, and then regardless of what I see there, it's like by the time it's like, okay, I got like 15 minutes of light left, I'm like, I should freaking bull out of here and just run laps, And I usually do, and I'm glad that I am, because that's when I see the most. You bail out and you catch the very last glimpse of.
Well, even when we go, like,
whatever.
Obviously we don't live in the Midwest, but if we go to Kansas and hunt public or wherever, I mean, the first day, usually we're driving around, just trying to see what's out, where are people at, what are deer doing, are we seeing any big deer, whatever. Like, it's just,
well, like you said earlier,
visible.
You just don't learn a lot sitting in one spot. Like, commit to one spot, and it's like that's your ambush. You know what I mean? You're not learning anything there, unless you're in the right spot.
And that's where the spot that I hunt is in a small area, but the habitat changes. Like, I'm hunting trees that were planted back when it was stripped they're all dead and dying. The undergrowth is coming up. So I got to move. Deer trails are changing. Then I killed my first 2 Pope and Youngs in 2006 and 2007. I killed Pope and Young back and back. So those were the last 3 bucks I killed, 2006, 2007, 2015. That's it. So this big property that I'm hunting is not like a mega buck farm.
Well, in the grand scheme, it's not big. That's the thing. I mean, look at what these deer are doing, moving 2 and 3 miles. They're covering 12 people's property, right? 12 people might have this same deer on camera, and they're like, I'm going to kill this deer.
That 147, I'm in my stand. It's the 2nd week of deer season, and it's in the middle of the week. So I hear a gunshot up where my cousin hunts, and I'm thinking, he just shot that buck. That's over a mile away. I get out of my stand, and I'm driving up the road because I truly believe over a mile away, my cousin just shot this buck. And right behind my brother's house on the farm, there he is standing inside my pasture fence over a mile away, and I videotape him. The same one that I got out earlier in archery season happened to me again in rifle season. And I killed him back behind my house in the middle of the woods when I was trying to hunt doe. I almost didn't even take the gun. I was going to just walk back there and try to bump deer so I can come back later in the day to try to hunt them.
Yeah.
I was trying to shoot doe. So that's how I killed that buck. I just was walking. I thought, well, I'm going to take the gun. I might as well take. And I shot that with that 30-40 Craig that was made in 1899.
Well, I was going to say, when you talked about your gear and review video stuff earlier, like I know you started to do, not necessarily gear and reviews, but you would take a lot of different unique guns out from a hunting standpoint.
Yeah, I still do that.
And I think that probably pulls in a lot of unique audience as well.
When you start, a lot of people just need to go out there and shoot a deer with an open iron sight lever action rifle.
Yeah.
30-30. Somebody, you have to do it. Whether it's a lever action or not.
That's how most of us
just
grew
open
up.
sights. Just walk through the woods and sneak up on deer. And you're going to be like, oh, man, I'm learning so much more that I don't have to just scout and scout and scout and scout and then just sit. And hopefully my scouting pays off. Do your scouting as you're hunting and you're learning this stuff. And it takes years. You have to know when you bump this deer, okay, now what? Where's he going to go? You've got to figure that out and spend time. But I get it. It's hard to do if I have the privilege of hunting right out my back door.
Yeah.
So if you have to travel to camp, that's going to be really hard to do.
Yeah, it's just less time that you're out there able to get in the woods.
But I will say, I read a lot of the Penn State Deer Forest study. They have the collared track.
Yep.
You guys need to look at that stuff. That teaches you exactly what I'm seeing in the woods. When I'm seeing, I'm like, okay, what I'm seeing is actually scientifically proven that this deer was on this hillside, then all of a sudden, he's over here and he's everywhere. And then he comes back and he comes. So I've got to the point now, I'm not worried about trying to shoot this buck. I could care less because you know what I'm going to be doing on opening day? Whacking doe. And guess what? He was out there last year, opening day, first 2 doe, bam, bam. I got 6 tags now. I'm going to be laying out doe as fast as I can. And I don't care, even though the biggest buck that I would possibly ever know. And because it's fun for me. I'm not going to stress myself out because at this point, at that age, and the rut and everybody that's hunting and the pressure, you just got to be at the right place at the right time. It's not about doing your scouting and figuring it out unless I have all the time in the world to archery hunt.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Then that changes it for sure.
So, yeah. And, yeah, I mean, my neighbor hung a stand not far from where I was seeing that buck, and it's just like I'm not worried about it. Everybody's gung-ho, throw everybody under the bus to try to get this buck. That's the way most people
We just
are.
talked about that, man. It's like big bucks make people do stupid things, and a lot of relationships are ruined over it.
Yes.
The HUNTR Podcast is brought to you by Sever.
Well, one of the biggest things that we always talk about is what our arrow setups are. And this year we're shooting the Sever Broadheads. I think we're both shooting the new 2-inch titanium Broadhead. And so, we're huge proponents of expandables. And I know we've had this argument back and forth with people, but
We're right and you're wrong, and you just need to accept it.
We just want to have a giant wound that pumps out blood. That's the bottom line.
We build our arrow setups and shoot bows, to maximize penetration, and we shoot broadheads that are going to give us the best blood trails, the most hemorrhage possible. And so part of those setups is we're also shooting the Easton arrows here coming up pretty soon. So we've shot the Victory in the past, and there's all kind of great arrow shafts on the market, but like we're looking for a whole system from broadhead to arrow components to the arrow shaft itself. And the more we look at some of these Easton shafts and the components that go with them, that setup's going to be really deadly for us.
Yeah, I'm actually using the Easton traditional axis right now in my traditional setups for both my recurve and my longbow. I've got a 100-grain brass insert on those, and then obviously I'm using a fixed blade broadhead on those specific shafts.
Right on.
So, but yeah, our goal is always to be shooting the best broadhead that we think is going to be the most lethal for our setups. We've done plenty of research. We believe in the Sever broadheads, and we hope you would check them out at Sever Broadheads as well.
And that's where I have come to understand a completely different worldview, especially becoming a Christian in 2013. My whole worldview has changed. The way I look at the world, the way I view things, I prioritize things completely different. And I would rather be behind the camera, taking somebody out, shooting a doe, knowing a monster buck is right there that could be the biggest buck I ever shot in my life. But it's not like I have anybody to try to, like in the industry, everybody's trying to do that because then they can put their picture on a paper.
Yeah.
It's a resume. You can't be high up in the industry if you haven't killed anything over 130.
Yeah.
Nobody's going to take you seriously. So it's not like I have to sell product. I don't have to and I can say and do whatever I want. I can hunt when I want, and I'm just going to have fun. And there's too many people that are way overthinking and way overanalyzing. And when you guys have talked to all the big guys that you guys have talked to, everybody's having a different opinion.
Yeah.
And you might
all different.
Overthink stuff. Cellular trail cameras, you guys have talked about that, about how you can overanalyze stuff. It can ruin your hunt. And I'm to the point now where I just want to see him out of velvet. I just hope a family member shoots him. Look what I got.
Yeah, that's awesome.
I have these. I could care less now. If I had never thought I'd ever find that. I just thought, nope, I'm never going to find him.
Pretty wild.
I actually thought he was staying another mile away at a different property. And I thought, yeah, that's where he's dropping his sheds.
I mean, the cool thing about it is that's the kind of deer that if you just randomly gave somebody and you're like, where do you think that deer's from? They're like, I don't know, Kansas, Iowa. Like, they'd have no idea that that's a Pennsylvania deer, right? And that's where, like, again, you go back 20 years ago, like, we didn't see this shit in the woods running around. Like these, maybe they existed in places, but even still, I mean, that deer like that are fairly common in our area of Pennsylvania now.
Sure.
Yeah.
Good 3-year-old 130 to 140 inch deer.
But if you shot that 25 years
Holy
ago,
cow, dude.
do you know how many people were coming to your house to look at that thing?
You were a freaking parade,
honestly,
man.
Like,
you were a parade.
I seen it. I seen it happen 2 times maybe. You know what I mean? But it's like we're driving 20 minutes to see a 16-inch 8-point that someone shot.
Oh, I know.
Because no one ever heard of it. You know
people
what I mean?
did that, man. They drove I'm trying to remember what county's my uncle in. It's
he's north. He's is he Mercer?
Like Guys Mills, like Meadville,
or Erie.
Is that? Yeah, it's
Meadville,
Crawford County.
Yeah.
He shot I don't know exactly how long ago it was. It was probably, I don't know, 20 years ago, right? He was bow hunting and killed a 158. It was like a 3-year-old 158-inch deer. And he said that I want to say it was in the newspaper, and
I bet, dude.
And also, guys it was like
that's when Pennsylvania
he was like
Pennsylvania Sportsman Magazine and Pennsylvania Game and Fish were really big. I mean, you saw some like the elite of elite deer were in those type of magazines.
Well, and just the way that he talks about it, he's like, I was like the man. Like people died like I mean, everybody. I was like it killed the biggest deer in Crawford County in like however long, whether it was or it wasn't. It was a
I mean, it was. That was the thing. I mean, you could have never killed a buck before and been a 50-year-old dude. And if you shot a buck like that, you were the greatest hunter in Pennsylvania. Yeah. At least for that year.
Yeah, for that year.
Yeah, and it's like all you knew is like you were smoking cigarettes sitting on a stump and this thing came by. You thought it was, a half rack, and you shot it.
Well, it's funny how those go. I mean, it's all like, people probably speculate as to why he was hunting this deer and here's how the strategy was. And like, not to discredit it at all, but it was a friend of his, it was a taxidermist, was like, hey, I've got a, pretty solid deer. I'm already tagged out. He's just been walking this edge right here. He's like, you should come and hang a stand. And so he went in there and it's like, it was late season.
Yeah.
And he said he did something like he dropped the stand, like he got clear to the top, he was hanging it, and it just made like the loudest bang you could possibly imagine. It was just like a complete shit show walking in there basically. And still, the thing must have hurt him, surely, but still just got up and here he came and just whacked him. And it just happens that way. And when they're there. You just got to be in between.
And it was late season
where
too?
They're going. There was snow on the ground for sure.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah. Not many bucks killed in the late season.
Yeah.
Especially when you talk about late archery or flintlock, like, no,
I mean, that's the problem I have in flintlock season is if they made it into flintlock, they're gonna make it.
I know.
So it's
the
like,
hardest
okay,
thing to make the decision
here,
on.
I can kill that one, but I know he's gonna make it. So
yeah,
there's a one. I get just so picky that I gotta keep trying to up the next size.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, I'm extremely picky on my bucks. I am whacking doe all the time. I mean, that's what most of my videos are.
I get that way
just
too.
me shooting doe.
Even in late archery season, I'm just like, boy, at a certain point, I just don't want any more bucks to die.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, there's still, it could be like end of December, and I got guys on our property that are like, hey, Kate, where are these bucks at and stuff? I'm like, I just would rather not any of them die.
They kind of made it.
Like they made it this far. Downpour on opening day of rifle season.
Every day I pray for that.
Heavy fog. I wish for
fog.
heavy fog.
Anything to keep guys out of the woods.
Now,
but then I think about it. But then 60% of those total hunters are already out of the woods.
Yeah, they're already out.
Killed them with a bow. So
yeah.
I mean, out of those last 3 bucks that I've killed, those 2 Pope and Young bucks were basically just hunting a funnel, and it was just putting my time in.
Yeah.
I was single at 2000, I'm a couple years out of high school, and I'm hunting every day, all day long, and I'm just sitting there in a funnel waiting in the rut, and I killed one November 8th, one November 3rd.
Yep.
So they both were in the high 130s, one almost barely, just about touching 140 gross. But out of everything I know, I can kill way more sneaking up on the ground, walking in a rifle in the middle of the week when nobody else is in the woods.
Mm-hmm.
And I would like those deer to be a little pressured because I know where they're at. They're predictable.
Yeah.
And so don't think that middle rifle season, later part of rifle season, and late flintlock season, it's worthless. Because these bucks are still out there that are hiding, and they show themselves.
Well, I mean, so many people, and I mean, I kind of was the same way, even though I killed a ton of deer in late flintlock and missed a ton of deer in late flintlock. But like the moment rifle season was over, it was like, season's kind of over. I'm going to go kill does probably, but if I had a buck tag, I was going to punch it as a doe tag probably. It wasn't even in the back of my head to like kill a buck. I killed 1 buck with my flintlock when I was a junior or senior in high school. And, I've probably shot at 10.
Yeah.
Now
that would have been
that was after antler point restrictions. I killed an 8-point.
So that would have been probably 2003.
I think it was 2002 or 3.
Because 2002 was the first year, right?
Yep. I think
that's when I killed my first and only buck with a flintlock. Was the first year of the antler restrictions.
I think mine too. I vividly remember pushing him out of an area and a guy missing him. And then me like sprinting across the field to like cut him off. And it was like 100-yard shot, like freehand. And I'm like, whatever. And I shot and I was like, boy, he acted like I hit him. And it like was blizzarding. Like it was iconic, like late season. And I was like, I found blood. I'm like, holy shit. I hit this thing. Tracked him up and he piled up at like 60 yards. Meanwhile, I'd missed like 4 at 15 yards that year.
Yeah. I know there's nobody that can beat him in the woods in deer season, in archery season. You're looking at, I would put him up against any of the best hunters in the world. Shane is a natural born killer with a recurve.
Well, I was going to say,
looking at the stuff that he does, like to get within recurve distance is a whole nother ball game. And like he's always said, it's when you have a compound, you can hunt 2 trails. With a recurve, you almost have to pick one.
Yeah.
And it makes you look at a whole lot of different stuff. I learned a lot from him. So
yeah, your video on like the straight down like I remember watching you shoot a recurve like straight down on this deer the one time. I'm like, that's cool, you know, because I'd never seen anybody shooting recurves and stuff before.
Should try it.
I put one in a shoulder blade last year, but it's adjusting because like
it's a totally different ball game. It really is because, and maybe it's because that's the only thing that I've done my whole life, opposed to starting to do something, but it's like I see things totally different.
So have you ever gone to compound?
No.
Wow.
No.
So from the get-go.
Yep. Right off. I guess it's like one of those things. I don't know. Grew up poor. My dad had a recurve under the bed that he shot whenever he was younger, and it's like I wanted to shoot bow. We didn't have money to go and buy me a bow. Yeah, it's like here. Now my dad had a couple good buddies that had shot recurve also, and they taught me how to shoot. Built me a string for the bow, stuff like that. Went out, shot it.
Are you pretty technical in it now in terms of like your arrow builds and stuff?
Yeah, I'm a dabbler.
Yeah?
Yeah, I mean,
because I mean, I'm sure you've learned a ton since it's like it's what you use.
It's like, yeah, I believe in the FOC and stuff like that. Yeah, absolutely, I do. I think there's a difference there, but it's also like, I kind of also feel like with all this stuff, I've been doing this since day one. You know what I mean? It's like whenever I first started even shooting a carbon arrow, I had a 100 grain brass insert in the front of it, shooting 125 or 150 grain broadhead in front of that. It's like I'm already at 225, 250 grains.
Up front, yeah.
Up front, not even knowing what FOC was, but that's what flew good out of my bow. That's what, you know, good penetration, blowing through deer, stuff like that. But like I said, I've went to different things and tried different things and stuff like that. Micro diameter arrow, whether it matters or not, I'm not sure of, but I'm sure there's some help there.
Have you looked at like, you know, because and it's on the compound side, but we get not a lot, but we've had several conversations with the guys who are in like the 600 to 700 grain arrow mindset. And it's like, you know, from a compound standpoint, our argument obviously with those bows is the speed. We do pay attention to FOC and things like that, but from a recurve or a longbow standpoint, obviously that speed is way down from that. So, you know, heavier arrow for the momentum aspect makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, and it's also like I've probably shot, I don't know for sure, right in the ballpark of 50 deer with a recurve.
Wow.
And I think that I've shot 2 that have been over 20 yards.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So it's like
point blank.
They've been. That's where they've been. You know what I mean? And it's like, not that I can't shoot farther, that I can't group a softball at 30 yards. I don't.
Yeah.
Hunting's different to me. Like I want to get them that close. You know what I mean?
It's the whole point of archery.
Yeah, in a sense, that's how I was brought up. That's what I believe. You know what I mean? And it's like, I'm not belittling someone for being a great shot that can shoot a golf ball at 100 yards with a compound. Great. I mean, that takes skill too. You know what I mean? But it's also like, I also see the bad that comes with that. Not that I can't hit a deer. You know what I mean? I've wounded deer before. I'm sure anyone who's hunted long enough has. You know, you'll hear it repeated all the time. You know, I've wounded deer. It close. You know what I mean? It happens. But it's also like I feel there's a lot more that can happen farther away. So if you minimize your yardage or your shooting and stuff like that, I'm not saying, like I said, there isn't stuff that can go wrong, but there's a smaller error there, or a margin, I guess, as far as that goes. But yeah, like I said, as far as arrow builds, I always shot gold tips for the longest time. It's just like cheap. Yeah. We used to go to HUNTR. I mean, I still do go to HUNTR every year, the Eastern Traditional Archery Rendezvous. Go to it every year. If you've never been to that, you ought to go to that sometime too. Yeah, it's a good time.
Okay.
That's what Kevin was telling us about that.
Yeah.
It is. You meet a lot of good people.
Kevin? Morrow? He's the Trad Geeks, was like a channel that he had for a while on YouTube.
Yes.
He's a really good dude.
He's an Indiana guy.
Yeah.
Indiana County.
I guess I know of him.
Yeah.
You know,
he's telling us about ETAR as well.
Yeah. It's a good time. It is. I mean,
where is that?
It used to be at Denton Hill in Coudersport, and they changed it to the sawmill. It's just outside of Williamsport.
Yeah.
So when do they do that?
The last weekend in July.
Okay.
Cool.
But it's like a big campground vendors. They have 9 or 10 3D courses. You go and shoot them. We camp out and stuff like that.
Yeah, nice.
But yeah, like I said, you go through vendors, but they have like I don't know, 15 or 20 different bow boyers that'll sell bows and stuff like that. You know, you got Black Widow, you know, all your traditional bows.
Traditional
and
guys.
Like,
Yeah. Because, I mean, that's the one where, you know, and I mean, you got to shoot enough deer, but like, I think every like dedicated compound guy at some point says, now I need to up the challenge.
Sure.
Right. And so, you know, traditional is usually the next step that makes the most sense.
I think that's where I've seen such a big influx in people wanting to do it, or at least learning about it. You know what I mean? It's my Facebook page. You know what I mean? My messages and stuff like that. After watching our videos, it's like flooded with stuff. Not just mine. The other guys that do it too. You know, Ryan
there's just not a lot of people out there.
No, you know, and it's one of those things where, like I said, I do think that. I think everyone should try it. I do. Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of frustration with it.
Sure.
But I think that's part of hunting, though, too. You know what I mean? It takes a dedication and a frustration to do it. You know what I mean? Like I said, you start shooting it, but it's also like there's enough information out there now. Like the Push Archery, they put a lot of good information out there. There's a lot of people that have a lot of good information. I had to learn it basically on my own.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And it's like... But it's also like probably anything else. What works for me might not work for you.
Yeah.
How I draw my bow might not work for you. I don't gap shoot. I shoot instinctive. I look at a spot on a deer.
You do.
Draw back and
You should see them shooting fish in the water. No string, just shooting.
Just straight, like almost shooting from
carp.
Yeah,
just wading in the water, sight fishing. Not only that, you have the angle deflection that you're looking.
Yep.
He's shooting fish in the head.
I mean, that's the hardest part, like, because obviously, like, I'm practicing my compound all year, and so, you know, I've got one of the Hoyt Satori recurves that I've used, and I started with a recurve. Again, we grew up poor too, so my dad had a compound, and I said, well, I want to shoot bow, and he's like, okay, he's like, I've got a recurve, but we weren't going to get another one, so that's what I started with, and then, I think last year I bought a Tolkien Pika 56 longbow, which is sick. It is just in the hand, like everything feels great about it. And again, you know, but it's such different shooting, actions than my compound that switching back and forth is difficult.
Sure, it would be.
So it's kind of like, you know, like I can set my compound down right now, pick it up, go shoot 30 or 40 yards, and I felt fine with it. It's trying to build that repetitiveness and that muscle memory up with the longbow. But I think it's one of those things, like if I shot a buck with my compound early in the season, I'd be way more apt to be like, cool, let's try the longbow. Let's just see what happens. Because at that point, like I already won. Game's over.
Do you think there's more of a learning curve with actually shooting the recurve, or with like the hunting style that it requires to get close?
Both.
Yeah.
I do, because it's like I said, a lot of the people around me have been compound hunters, and it's like I'll look at a stand, and I don't know what it is. I don't have a definitive reason, but I'll look at that stand and be like, that stand would never work for me. it never would work for me. You know what I mean? Just if this is a trail that you're shooting, like I can't do that. You know what I mean? So it's like I'm looking for a tighter funnel or a pinch point pine tree. You know what I mean?
You want more cover.
Yeah, I'm a lot of times
and closer.
Yeah.
Are you a hang high or hang low guy?
12 feet, 15 feet.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's because the lower you are, it's like you got more to shoot at.
Because Cody DeQuisto is shooting trad now, and like he's talking about like 4 to 8 feet.
Yeah. I mean, if you could get into a tree like that, and it's like, now I have a daughter, and now she uses a crossbow, you know, but it's like I've been doing the whole ground hunting with ghillie suits, leafy suits, and stuff like that for the past couple of years, and it's like, the amount of deer we've had close or would have had close, it's like that's like my next step, I think, is to go, like, everyone's saddle hunting now, and it's like I never had interest in that. Yeah, I mean, honestly, like I did.
Not our style.
It just like I never.
Well, I think you hang accordingly. Like as you're talking through it, you know, and I've considered it myself. Like if I were to go to a trad bow, or talking to guys like Cody, or I'm like, that's the tree they would be in. Like I'm hanging. Because I'm hunting out of a fixed position tree stand for the most part. I'm hanging a lone wolf where I have a fixed position hung, and I have a compound bow. So I'm like, and I'm also hunting private property that I want to minimize pressure like as much as I can.
Sure.
So and it's funny how like if you break down even these micro differences in strategies or the weapon that you're using between compound and recurve, I don't want to be 10 yards. I mean, if he happens to be there, great, I'll kill him.
I get that. Yeah, no, because I know.
Just that's your style though, right? In terms of being 10 yards, like you would rather have more gap space.
Yeah, I mean, if I can have him at 15, that's perfect.
Yes.
15, and that's closer than that. I'm in a bubble there. First of all, I've had to maybe walk over more trails than I want to. Like if I can, because most of my sets, I'm in borderline, farm cattle country. I'm coming in, I'm using dead space like cattle pasture or cattle woods. We really use that as much as we can, and I barely dip my toe into like deer space basically. And I hang my stands like for a 20-yard shot, 20, 30-yard shot, you know what I mean? But I have thought, I was like, man, if I, like in Iowa, where it's private property, but it's not like I'm managing it or like, I've got one crack to go in and be as deadly as possible. I hung all those sets, Jeremy and I did probably 10 or 15 yards closer than I would normally. Because I have no problem. Like, I want to get aggressive. And I would love to kill him at 10, 15 yards. But
yeah, for me, it's like 8 to 12 yards. Yeah,
that's what you're looking
like
for?
My sweet spot. Yeah. I mean, like I said, I'm confident shooting. I want to say I could shoot a deer at 25 yards, but I don't want to have to. You know what I mean? Yeah. And it's like,
sure. I think my thing is like, because I'm for whatever I hang on them. Like it's cost me some deer too, or cost me some long tracks, like single lungs basically. Mm-hmm. But like, when I get into a spot and different, like most of my places are big woods. So I'm walking through the woods and I'm looking, and as I see whatever the trails or the funnel happen, I'm like, that's the tree. Now
he missed the part where he's like, oh, okay, that's the trail. Now here's how I'm a right-handed shot. Yeah, you've missed that part.
I just go, they're coming through right here. I'm going to sit right here. And like, I'm on them. And I mean, I've killed a lot of my bucks, a lot of Pope and Youngs at 5 and less.
Sure.
Like,
that's such an art. Yeah. I love the conversation of hanging stands, whether you're in a saddle or a stand or whatever. The thought process of like observing and being like, okay, here is where he's going to be standing when I kill him. And then walking that back to you. Okay, so where do I need to be and how do I need to be in the tree? I just love that.
My 2 Pope and Youngs were in white ash. So
which are now all dead.
That's
like rule number 1. You never hang in an ash tree, right?
It's crazy that at least in a little, probably 2-acre piece of woods, I've had at least 10 trees die and fall over that I hunted out of.
That seems to be some kind of weird premonition.
No, it's a compilation of red pine that were all planted at the same time from when they stripped it. Yep. They all died at the same time.
Yep.
And you had to bust all the limbs off. One was dead, dying, moved to the next one. It would die. Then I found a spot where I would hunt and rifle because it was kind of a funnel where they had an upper trail and a lower trail. So in rifle, I would hunt the lower trail and shoot up to but the upper one always seemed to have the deer come in archery season. And that's where I killed both my Pope and Young bucks. But it was just so I can see the whole way down. They'd like to wrap around the hill in early season because the doe would come out into the upper field where the pine trees were planted. They were really small at that time. And so I would just wait and see them coming through. And I remember I just got in, set up on a trail. If they come through here, I shoot them. If not, he come through. I think that first one was maybe 15 at the most, and double lunged him. The very next year, I saw one coming out the bottom trail, and so before I had a small little grunt tube, so I hit and a bleat can, but for some reason I didn't. I said no, I'm not doing the grunt. I'm going to test this out. I knew it was a big buck. This would be the second biggest buck I'd ever seen, and I just snort wheezed at him. 180, come right up, 13 yard. Now I was sky high because I'm hunting a real hillside, and he's on the lower side. And when I drew, he's just staring right at me. And when he went up, he just had huge brows, and I'm like, whoa! And I'm like, oh, wait a minute, and got him, but. The thing is he's doing a recurve and he's filmed himself kill buck in a day.
That's insane.
Yeah, with a recurve. He always keeps saying that I'm going to shoot a recurve, and he always says that he's going to break.
It seems like it would be your style, just with the Flintlock.
I don't have the time now.
Well, yeah,
And that's the thing. He's like, yeah, you got to put time in.
That's, I guess, was the next step. You know what I mean? It's like I shot deer and I shot him with a recurve. It'd have been like a compound, you know, moving to a recurve. It's like, now I got to try to film myself doing it. You know what I mean? And it's...
He just, like I said, doing that you shot a doe and a buck within a week. Self-filmed with your recurve.
Yeah, I've did a few doe. I mean, obviously you got more opportunity at doe than you do a buck, but...
I always told him, I was like, if I kill another big buck with my bow, then I'll go recurve, or unless my bow breaks. So he says, your limb still on there? He keeps saying he's going to smash my bow, so I go to recurve. But that's pretty much what I've settled in. I probably will go. My bow is some old PSE Fireflight that I bought out of the Cabela's magazine in 2000. So it's in the same way with him, but I'm still only shooting. I won't shoot over 20. I'll shoot less than 20. Most of my shots have all been under 15 too. And like he always said, he goes, I'm always trying to get him as close as I can. When I'm talking to him, he's like, oh yeah, he goes, I'm not, we use the climbers. I killed my deer out of climbers. He's like, I'm not even up that high. He goes, I don't even use the upper part of my stand. I just stand on the lower platform. That's all he did. I'm like, I didn't, like, thinking a little bit outside the box, like you don't have all that in your way. But yeah, self-filming, especially, like I said, being diversified on the YouTube channel, doing that.
Have you guys ever like filmed each other or other people, or has it been mostly self-film?
You and I have.
Yeah, I mean, back in the day.
When you guys were younger, single. But now it's kind of like opportunistic. You kind of have to.
Yeah, it's like I mean, I'm usually now, if I'm filming anyone, it's my daughter. Or
I was going to say the same.
You know what I mean? And it's like, just because scheduling, I guess,
Yeah, so I mean, if you only get 3 days to hunt, it's like, I only get 3 days to hunt.
Yeah.
I usually was never filmed by anybody. I always like to self-film. I always like to challenge.
Well, now your wife, film your wife.
Yep.
Cousin, maybe I've seen before.
Multiple cousins. Yeah. Cousin from Mississippi, Florida.
Usually when they came up from the South.
Yep. So I'm getting into the point now where I'm just sacrificing my opening day. If somebody comes, have them, now they have their own property with lots of doe that they can go to. But it's the fact that I think that's what deer hunting is about. It's about being with family. It's about the camaraderie of deer camp. It's about, like you said, making deer camp great.
HUNTR Podcast is brought to you by Spartan Forge.
Dude, maps. Mapping, right? Yeah. It all starts with a map, a visualization of a new property, into the fine-tuning of, different food plots, different habitat projects, where those are going to go, all the way to sharing pins and looking kind of like beyond the layers with something like LiDAR, which is, exclusive to Spartan Forge as of now.
Yeah, and whether we're looking at it from a management side to put in food plots or switchgrass, or if we're taking a run-and-gun public approach on Kansas, it all starts with a map. It starts with a strategy there. You and I are going to have our own Blue Force team, which will allow us to run our own devices, but be able to see what you're adding or what I'm adding to that single map, which is really going to be critical moving forward this hunting season.
That's right. So if you're looking for a mapping software to try out this year, or maybe you're just like not getting what you need out of the one you're using currently, Bill's offered us a promo code of HUNTR20, HUNTR20, that you guys can use to get your own subscription up and rolling. Check out Spartan Forge, download the app, use that promo code, and we'll be using that this year.
Make sure you check out Spartan Forge. John, you explain to what you're pouring first.
Okay, so this is an Isla Scotch.
We're just going to sip this one.
We're going to ruin these guys.
Just a sipper, huh?
Bourbon guys. So this is going to be an experiment. I told them, I said, this is a completely different ball game. And it's nothing bad about bourbon. I love bourbon.
You like Scotch?
But
I don't drink it often.
I can't remember the last time I had it, honestly.
The thing is, bourbon has a...
Whoa, she's got a smell to her, doesn't she?
Oh, if you're smelling it all right. Bourbon is like in this range. Scotch is out here like this. Okay.
There's wait, say that again.
From like a flavor profile
varieties.
Or okay.
Yeah. So when you hear bourbon, you know what you're getting.
Yep.
Scotch, got to be a little.
If it ain't from Kentucky, I don't drink it.
Got to be a little bit more specific.
What's the process difference with Scotch versus like a bourbon?
Is it fairly clear?
Yeah, and that's not all Scotches like that, because remember, they're using X bourbon and X wine casks.
You know what's funny?
I'm just giving you
this might ruin it for some people.
You may have to go dump out the rest if you don't like it, but that's all right.
Getting a hint of mildew?
No. It has a hint of of snuff.
Okay.
Everyone's going to say something different. I know.
So here's the thing.
Just me?
Yeah.
Is there
So
anything in there?
just smell it. But here's what
Is
you
all I
got to
can
think.
handle here?
It's a sipper. It's a $500 bottle.
So what you want to do is you just want to take a little tiny sip that's like it's hot coffee, and just take a little sip and swish it around your mouth.
Okay.
And think as if you're like walking by a lake.
Does it
and
not
there's
smell
some
snuffy?
You might like seaweed. You might get briny. You might get some type of smoke. There's all different kinds
I do
of
smell smoke.
There's cigar smoke. There's
No,
campfire
that's
smoke.
This is like
There's
yeah.
cooking smoke. There's 100 different types of smokes. There's ashtray smoke. Not all smoke is the same. And as you drink it, it's going to change.
What are you thinking?
So it's either a love it or hate it thing, but it
What's the proof on it?
I think this is
I don't hate it.
this might be this is 100.
It's spicy,
Yeah.
but it
Yeah, this-
finishes okay.
Yeah,
It's-
I didn't hate it.
I definitely
It doesn't smell great.
I definitely have the smokiness of it.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's what lingers.
For sure.
It has a finish that lasts more than any type of bourbon
Yeah.
will have.
We earlier were trying to relate it to like candy. I would say it. Well, what he said was that whiskey is like Skittles. This is like
bourbon.
black
bourbon.
licorice
It's
or
sweet.
something.
You know, everybody likes.
I would
likes
say
sweet
that's more
candy,
like a.
But then you have like black licorice, good and plenty. That's like your Scotch. It's a different type of ball game.
I would say like so if bourbon is like or whiskey is like a sharp cheddar cheese,
Yeah.
right? I would say this is more like what's one of those like moldy. They let them get moldy on purpose,
Yeah.
but it's like it's a high class like a
because what they're doing is they're taking peat, which is like a marshy bog.
They are
that's dried
taking
up.
peat?
Yeah.
Explain it.
Oh, yeah.
I'm not
So that tastes exactly like
I'm
peat.
a
That's what
bourbon,
that
I'm a
is.
bourbon guy
Scotland.
with like
This is-
corn
I
mash,
learned
right?
a lot. This
Educate
bottle
us.
was sent to me from a guy that watches our videos, Craig in Scotland. So shout out to him. But
The
he
dude from
sent
Scotland sent it for and he,
Yeah.
I love
so we got
this.
to talking about our
Okay.
videos, and then
Okay.
he's like, next thing you know, he's talking about sending me. He's out on a stag hunt, and he's like walking over.
We have
he's
another
like,
splash as you're
I'm
talking
walking
about that.
He says, I'm walking over the glen here, and the glen is what we would call spring here.
Okay.
Okay, so a lot of scotches are called like the Glenfiddich, Glenmorangie, and the Glen is the spring in which the distillery sat on.
So like
the water that they
Kentucky's going to use a lot of the
So you would just call it the spring.
the limestone waters and
so
stuff.
whatever the name of the spring is,
Mm-hmm.
you know, whatever that spring is called is what the distillery is named after.
Gotcha. So if it was
So-
Sulphur
Here.
Springs,
Here,
it
this'll-
would be
this'll-
Sulphur.
And that's just with names with the word Glen in it.
Gotcha,
Glen.
gotcha.
So
This will help you. I mean, maybe it's better we sipped it beforehand to come up with our own. But this describes pungent earthiness fills the lungs, aromatic clouds of darkness,
Clouds of darkness.
clouds of darkest chocolate and sharp peppermint ascend.
I don't feel that one.
Aniseed and powdery cinnamon billow.
Anise. A little bit.
Yeah.
Anus?
Licorice.
Is that what that tastes like?
What? You guys getting a little bit of anus here? While the tang of menthol lingers.
Oh, I've been on a menthol kick with my nasal
I
spray
definitely get a
lately.
little
That
bit
might
of,
be it.
A little bit of menthol for sure. With the purifier gone, who will restore the balance?
yeah, so this was a one-time limited release. This is a specialty.
And this is like a $500
I
bottle
think
of scotch.
the-
It's
I could see the very fine line between
a lot.
the
I don't know
smoky
exactly the number,
and
but-
that also being earthy.
yeah.
That makes
So,
sense.
You can find this brand in Pennsylvania, but this bottle here is a special one-time.
What are you saying about peat? It's
So peat is
Like peat moss, right?
Yeah, so
Peat
they don't
bogs.
have trees to burn a fire. Okay, so what they do is barley grows, so barley grows good there, and so they take the barley. They have like a perforated screen and a floor.
grows like in
and
America.
underneath.
Where's peat come from?
Well, the peat is like a when
There's like
you-
peat bogs and
like
stuff.
Scotland is like just
in the
rolling
Carolina-
hills.
in
Carolina, Carolinas
Comes
have it.
from
Scotland.
Scotland?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, and so the peat is just broken down plant material, like from a swamp or a bog that's got like dried it up, and it's everywhere up there. So it's like super rich soil that burns. So it's not dirt; it's like organic material.
Right.
They cut it with a special shovel that cuts it out of the ground like
It's not
a brick.
a bad taste.
And then they dry
it
it.
lasts for a long time in
And
your mouth.
Yeah,
use
it's nice.
that as a replacement for wood. So when the
Interesting.
barley they put on a perforated floor, They
there's a
spray
lot
it
going
down,
on there.
they get it wet, and it starts to germinate. When it germinates, that's the highest concentration of sugar in it. Now they need to kill it. They need to stop that process. Light a fire, throw the peat in, the smoke
suffocates it out.
The heat stops that process. So then they take all that dry, put it in their mash bill, and then they distill it. That all follows down. Now in Scotland, they used a lot of wine barrels from France to put in to store their whiskey. And because it's not like they have oak trees all over the place.
Yeah.
So they are a big importer of our bourbon cask because bourbon has to be put into brand new.
Yep.
If it's put in a second time, it can't be called bourbon.
Exactly.
So they send the used bourbon casks over. And so you can take the same distillate, put one in a wine cask, one in a bourbon cask, and they're going to have two different whiskeys. You might have a whiskey that has a barbecue smoke to it and one that has a ashtray smell to it.
Yeah.
But that's the peated scotch, and that's called most of the Islay scotches. Now you have scotches that are peated very lightly. You have Speyside and Highland, and you have there's a wide variety of those. So this isn't just this is what all scotches are. This is a niche of scotch. But it's on the far extreme side.
Interesting.
So
what do you think?
You can find scotches that taste similar.
Yeah, I mean,
Jeremy
very different ball game.
Really enjoys bourbon. What do you think of that?
Yeah, I kind of like the flavor profile of it. Like it'd be for like what we're doing, like in a sipping scenario type of thing. Like I don't know if I'd be like pouring myself like 3 fingers like I will do with my bourbon.
Yeah, it's not something that you
the smell
bring
is
out
pungent.
daily.
Smell is what.
Well, so I'm corrupted a little on the smell because I can't put my finger it's probably something cheap like when I bought Longhorn back in the day or something like that.
Yeah.
But there's a
musky, mildewy,
there is
a
definitive
Wet
can
hay.
of snuff that I've opened up at some point and I've smelled it and it is that exact smell.
It's like, you know, a year after,
which makes sense.
9 months after opening day of trout, like you put your
no.
maggots in the fridge.
For sure,
and
like it's a natural,
it's a
natural
trout. Old rubber worms in it.
Oh, wow. That's
For a long
resonating
time.
for sure. Yeah.
So that has a lot to do with right brain, left brain, and how we experience drinking anything or eating anything. And sometimes people will taste something for the first time, and it reminds them. That reminds me of Grandpa's
I haven't
horse
remind
farm
me
with
real
the
quick.
leather
I haven't
saddles,
smelled or tasted that thing because I quit chewing snuff. God, I don't know, 15 years ago, maybe 14 years ago, and I chewed for a long time. But like that immediately brought that back, and it's like. Maybe it was like the old school Skull original or one of those ones had a really weird.
You said about the filled fishing bag.
I chewed for a long time.
Yeah, well, that's what I chewed Copenhagen.
That's what I. But I'm getting. Yeah.
There was like anybody listening to this will remember. There were everybody chewed like whatever Skull Wintergreen or Mint or something.
Yeah.
There was like a Skull original that came out that was just some nasty shit. I mean, like it was like salty and it was earthy, and I believe that is what I'm remembering out of the bank box of my brain.
I've never had that, but I believe you're spot on.
Yeah, because I chewed Copenhagen forever. Like I would immediately known like that was what it is. But
so,
but I'm not relating that because of like a bad taste. Like it's just there's aromas of that in there that kind of bring it back out. But I think it's the earthiness of it for sure.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a completely different ballpark. A lot of people, it's a sort of love it or hate it relationship with that. And
I don't know if I really love it or hate it. Like I'm just kind of it's just very different. And the only thing that would make me hate it is like I don't like long sharp finishes. Like it starts sharp and it like you said it lingers, but it's very mild. Like the flavor profile just is there. It's not like some of like the Four Roses, like 46 bourbon stuff, really spicy, lasts very long in the back end. I'm not a fan of that.
Okay, because I was debating bringing a barrel proof, single barrel, 132 proof.
That'll keep it hanging.
Probably would have burnt you out. So.
It'll burn you. In fact, I can't. It's not that I can't. I choose not to drink any rye anymore. That rye is really spicy, and I'll have heartburn for a long time if I drink a bunch of it. So
I just wanted to open you to
I love that, man.
I'm a little worried that that's going to ruin you because smell this. Now doesn't this smell like baby oil? Like
what?
Like that, once you had a taste of like the Strongs, doesn't that's like you're
but I mean,
throw
that's
that back
normal.
up before a workout or something.
I'll just like mix a little bit there, but still. No, I don't think so. I mean, that's what I would expect for. Yeah, I mean, that's like very sweet now.
That's what I mean.
Afterwards.
That's what I mean.
That's what I'm saying. That's like
It's like you've drank coffee with creamer in it
and
forever.
this is more complex.
And then you just had
deeper,
black coffee.
Yeah. This is like what men drink. This is like what women drink. No, it is neat because like
Just help yourself.
you know, even though I said I don't really drink the rye whiskey anymore. I'm very fascinated with Pennsylvania's history in rye whiskey.
Yes.
Like we've got a new distillery here over in Somerset that just opened that's doing their own rye whiskey and stuff. We have a really deep in that whole era of like early into that and you know into the Prohibition time period.
Yeah, the Monongahela rye is very popular. Was the original of and then it went
What? Say again. Monongahela rye.
Monongahela rye. So if you know anything about whiskey, the history, Pennsylvania rye was the main thing back in the day. not
Very
bourbon.
much.
Rye was
From
the big
this,
thing.
our Monongahela up here?
Yeah. Named
The
from
river or the
Pennsylvania.
town?
Along the river.
No, the river.
Okay.
The river. It was named Monongahela rye, and it was a popular rye. There are some distillers, I can't name them. Maybe they are, but there's some trying to get back to that original recipe.
That's this one over here,
Yeah.
which is Pond Fay. Yeah, Pond Fay in Somerset just built and it's like a destination place. So you can go and drink and shop and eat and stuff. But they just
Coach Pompey from Mighty Ducks.
No, not Gordon. Not Gordon. Pompey. Yeah,
that's something with the same thing with whiskey in general that I got into from cousins who have introduced me to it and showing the proper way of drinking it. You know, you're not
three fingers.
Drunk. You're not trying to get drunk or anything. It's an experience. It can bring back memories.
Are you
It
educated
can
on
take you
the
places.
process? I mean,
Oh yeah, I went way too.
can you go
too
through it
deep.
with us real quick? Like, what would be the proper way for tasting whiskey? I've never
Close
been through
your
a
eyes.
proper.
Close your eyes.
Yeah, have you ever been to a whiskey tasting or bourbon tasting?
No.
I'm not,
Oh, it's
I'm
cool.
not going to go
I went to
into
college,
never
but
have either.
there's what the general what super whiskey geeks get into, which I'm not that. I don't consider my that stuff. But basically, you want to smell it. You want to see what you are getting on the nose and what you're.
You want to keep it in your palate
take you somewhere?
a while.
Does it take you somewhere? Does it, like what he said? It reminds me of
Skull Original.
Sometimes it might take you to a place or something, and it could be bad depending on your history.
Sure.
Or it could be a good experience because you're not actually smelling like honey and caramel and
even though they'll say that's like in the flavor profile.
That's just
and everything.
what you're getting out of. Now you can be persuasive. I can lead you into saying some certain words, and you can go, "I
get
got
it."
that." Because just like when you said like Copenhagen tobacco or something, I instantly got that.
The
when you
tackle
said
box.
that.
The tackle
the tackle box.
That got me. Yeah, I was like,
So,
man, it
like,
smells fishy.
Like that's the thing. I can give this to somebody and say, "Here, I'm going to lead you down this road, and I'm going to get something in your mind to put you in a place, and then it'll be a pleasant." But there's a chance where I just give it and give you cold blind, and you go, "Smells like the inside of a brand new rubber tire. I ain't drinking this." Like water that's been stuffed in a Band-Aid, water or hospital burn.
Well, there's also that's nasty.
Those are things that are actually commonly associated with Scotch, those notes. And it's very off-putting for a lot of people, especially who are seasoned bourbon drinkers that are really accustomed to the sweetness. And then you throw this at them like, whoa.
I have a tough time drinking bourbon that's not from Kentucky, and it's probably just like an underlying thing because I know that it's not from there. But and even not just Kentucky, but like that key like central part of Kentucky where most of the distilleries are. Because I've gotten some from Western Kentucky, I've had some from Texas. I've had a couple from Texas are all right, but I had one from Western Kentucky that, to your point of like whatever, like the hospital, like type. Yeah. As soon as I took, I was like, what the? But I mean, again, for whatever reason, that's what triggered in my brain, and it was ruined. I was like, well, this is done.
Now, close to here in Washington, they have Liberty Pole.
Yep.
They make a peated bourbon.
Really?
Yeah, and I have it at home. It's not readily available up in my area, but you get closer to Pittsburgh, you can find it. But it's going to be a lot smoother and not as harsh as this.
But still has that earthy.
Yeah, you're going to get a little bit of that earthy stuff, but not all peat is identical.
I'm glad everybody turned into this whiskey podcast that we're having today.
What were you saying earlier about left and right brain triggering a different response?
Well, you have you have these suggestions that it can take you to a place, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you have these notes that you can get, and you're going, okay, this is the technical.
Remind me again too, which is which.
I don't know. This is my right hand.
I think
so this would be
right
my
right brain
I don't know what
is right brain creativity.
I'm asking the questions here. I don't know.
I'll look it up. How about
But
that?
basically,
Creative, and then left is analytical.
what it's saying is part of your brain wants to take you to a place or a thing. Like he just said, that reminds me of something.
Mm-hmm.
That was something that is not in the whiskey.
Okay.
Right. So the other side is going, okay, what is actually in here? You know, I'm actually picking up Pete. You know,
I'm not sure which
But then
side of my
somebody
brain
else-
is doing this, but
Right.
I'm more of a comparative nature. So like I instantly want to compare it to cheese, like in
you
the
can
sense that I'm
compare
like
it
I'm
to
just
anything.
thinking of a comparison.
Yeah. Listen,
Just for clarification, not to interrupt you, John. Left brain is logic, sequencing, linear thoughts, stuff like mathematics. Right brain is imaginative, intuition, arts, rhythm, daydreaming.
And you can be a combination.
Well,
So-
it says that some people are dictated as left or right dominant.
when that took you back to when you chewed, that was right brain.
It was the right brain.
right brain because it's imaginative.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, there was not really.
Because
it wasn't-
only he's going to get that. But now that he's suggested
I hope
that,
somebody else
gonna
that's
influence
had
something.
school original knows exactly, and maybe you won't, because like if you would have said before we tasted that or smelled it, like, hey, you remember what school original? I'm like, no, I don't remember at all.
Do you think though, if you would take another drink of it, since we've talked about all these different things, you'd have a different taste of it?
Well, now that they have that, it
Well, probably
not.
not now.
Probably not
that's
now.
the
Probably
I
thing.
have a
not
different
now.
taste of
Listen,
a different perception. I should say on
there's
this.
really no right or wrong way
Sure.
to drink anything.
Well, but it's fun for you to tell us
Some
how to
people
do
go,
it.
you
though.
got to do it.
Well-
but if you want to do it, how I got into it was.
It's just fun to listen
whether
to you talk while we're drinking, so.
whether you're drinking it neat or on the rocks,
Mhm.
and that's how the rocks got started, was from Scotland, because they didn't have ice back then. They were on the glen, and they would pick up the stones that were cold
And
out
put
of the
'em in.
spring and put them in their whiskey, and that's how we got
Fun fact,
on the
children.
rocks.
Wow.
So they picked up the cold rocks, and now
guy's
we
dropping
call
facts
it as,
like crazy.
as
Full of
ice.
information.
So when you drink, you just take a little sip as if it's hot coffee. You're not taking shots. You're not taking big swigs, and you're just exploring and see what you're getting out of
Swishing
it.
around your palate, your
Does
tongue.
it take you somewhere? And you're just letting it sit. And when the finish is gone, you're just sipping. And it's nothing. It's not a party thing. It's a social thing. It's a thing that this bottle's only going to come out special occasions type of thing.
Is wine tasting similar? I don't drink wine, so I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. But and a lot of that has to do with price. You have
What? What'd you say?
Is wine tasting similar?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's because the theory, like, so we're talking about, well, have you been one? Like, if you go to any of the Kentucky distilleries, right, you can do a bourbon tour, right? And so you go out, you see the rick houses where it's stored, and you hear about the process. And then at the end, you get to taste a bunch of different bourbons, right? And so it's a tasting, right? You're not just sitting there sipping. You're trying to get the flavor profile, and they're describing what you should be doing. Now, that said, like, you'll smell it because at that point you're activating certain profiles, and then you taste it as well. But, you know, I could taste whatever caramel in this, and you may be like, yeah, I taste cinnamon or whatever.
Yeah.
It's so different from person to person what you get out of the
Well, I
actual
think
drink.
Taste buds are different, right? So
Yes.
people probably perceive things differently, but they're aiming probably for a taste or have just determined that was the result
Well, I mean,
because of the process.
their master distiller is the one who's aiming for something.
Yeah, right. And so they say, well, okay, so we have these oak barrel or whatever type, and then it went through this process and it aged for this long.
Yep.
I want to say anything that has like a
What's
fermentation or an
what's
aging process,
Scotch
too.
have to? Is there an aging minimum on that, like bourbon
No.
and stuff? Because
No.
it doesn't need to sit necessarily in the
Yeah,
barrels.
I mean, I don't even know if this.
but they do
this-
have like
this
10-year-old.
This doesn't have an age statement. It's probably young, being as clear as it is. It's probably 2.
Yeah,
But they do have older ones.
yeah.
that
Because
you
like
can
I've
get
heard
up-
people say
yeah.
like, oh, it's a 10-year-old Scotch or
Yep.
whatever.
Sometimes they'll put them in an next bourbon, then put them in there a couple years, put them in the next wine cask.
Yep.
You can mix
Just
and match
them-
all different types of
mhm.
stuff. And so that's
Yep.
yeah. It's just a really unique experience, and that's what this is all about, just being around, being cool. And that's the classic bourbon maker's mark. Yep. But I mean, looking back in I almost want to tie this into.
Let's do it.
Hunting.
Let's bring it back.
Have you ever made your own?
Huh?
Have you ever made your own?
No.
No?
I don't have
not
time
that you know of.
I don't have time to bow hunt.
Yeah. What's he doing? Running a still in the mountains of Clarion County?
Uh-huh.
I don't know if any of that water's pure enough to be coming through.
Yeah. No glens up there,
Acid mine drainage.
Yeah, this looks like a little orange.
Yeah, check out this glen.
No, but looking back at the history of how whiskey is evolving, there's new people and there's constantly changing in the whiskey industry now. You look at that now, and takes me back to Flintlock season.
Yeah.
The late season, and why Pennsylvania has a Flintlock only late season.
One of the only states, or is it the only state?
I believe there's another state. We're the only Flintlock only. There might be other ones that have a muzzleloader only. Maybe percussion is added.
Yeah,
but
most of them
scopes,
have those percussion caps in. Yeah,
but we are Flintlock only because we are home of the long rifle, the Flintlock long rifle. It's not the Kentucky long rifle. It's the Pennsylvania long rifle. Its roots are here, and that season is not intended to be towards management in any way. When you look at the history of it, and I think. I'm not sure, but it might be the 50th year this year.
Of the Flintlock season?
Of the Flintlock season. And when they did that, they only did it in a couple game lands. I forget where, maybe in central PA. There's only a handful of people that participated in it. And it was all about keeping the heritage and the tradition of where we came from to learn that we came from this type of hunting thing. It was a time to reflect, a time to learn, a time to evaluate and appreciate what we have today, our modern rifles from where they came from. So it's a step back to like, okay, let's get out of the rat race of trying to find out this fletching, this bow, this rifle, this scope, and let's just go back to the basics and learn how they did it. And when I started hunt with a Flintlock, a buddy of mine was getting into it, and there's some people that have hunted a long time and they still can't hit the broadside of a barn.
Yeah.
You really have to start the right way, because if you start down this path, it's sort of like bad form for a long time. You're always going to have bad form, right? So it's sort of like, I guess you could say for lifting. If you have bad form, you're never going to get productivity, right? Same thing. If you have bad form in your recurve bow, you're always going to have.
You're not going to be consistent.
You're not going to be consistent. And so you have to start off, and the biggest thing is that flash going off in your face. And that is the biggest killer. And you see people's guns going off, it seems like it's right now. But when you're behind that gun, it seems like there's a 3-second delay between that flash going off and the gun hitting the recoil of that gun. And so I hunted for a long time, always used that because in Pennsylvania, you can use your buck tag, becomes an either sex tag statewide. You can go anywhere
after Christmas.
Right after Christmas, day after Christmas every year. Then depending on when Christmas lands, depends on how long. You might have close to a 3-week season or just 2-week season.
Yep.
And that season was originally round ball only. And it's Flintlock only, no percussion.
Yep.
And I think it was in the 80s, late 80s, that they did away with the round ball and allowed conicals.
Conicals in.
And so that I'm using a 42-inch barrel, square bottom rifling, 1-in-66 twist, round ball only, 50 cal with a 490 patched round ball, pillow ticking patched round ball. And that thing is tack driver because I've killed groundhog, shot them in the head at 80 yards.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh,
and I was missing
crap.
them just within an inch at 125. And I've only did that 1 year, and I videotaped it.
Jeez.
But that's with an iron sight, and I'm barely even seeing the groundhog. And so you can get those things dialed in really good. Now, obviously, the Hawken is the most common.
Yep, Hawken 50.
But that's the thing. Like, I started with a CVA, and they don't even make them anymore. Hawken, Tom Center stopped making them.
Yeah, I mean, I started with an old Traditions synthetic stock 50 cal, and I killed a pile of deer with it. Then I bought a Hawken 50 with a walnut stock on it, just because when I started with the synthetic, I liked it.
Yeah.
But it's very front heavy.
Yes.
Right, because that barrel is so heavy.
Yep.
So having a wood stock or walnut stock gives you a lot more balance, at least in my opinion, on it.
And most of those guns were 1 in 48 twist, so they could shoot a round ball or a conical out of them.
Yep.
But the semi-custom and custom guns, I've hunted with guys that have $5,000-$6,000 rifles.
Yeah.
Into the woods, extravagant wood carving,
Mm-hmm.
inlays, everything. And so I just had the CVA and always hunted. Then somebody that watched my videos, because there was nothing Flintlock.
No.
The only Flintlock that I had ever seen was, who was it? It was a Night and Hail video.
Yeah, they shot an elk.
I
I remember that.
Yes. That was the only video I had ever
Really?
seen
God,
of a
that had to been
Flintlock
even-
on national TV.
Wow.
Even on YouTube was the only one. And so
Yes.
I'm videotaping Flintlock stuff when we start in this YouTube channel, and he is doing the recurve stuff. And that's mostly what people are tuned into, because
That's how I
it's
found it.
Pennsylvania hunting. It's recurve,
Yep.
Flintlock, old school. And we're not only they're doing the bows in late season, and I'm doing the Flintlock stuff in late season. So we're having tons of, those were some of our most popular videos, sneaking up on doe in the powder and walking up on a doe in a bed and waiting for it to stand up, shooting it, dropping it in its bed. And those guys are doing deer drives with bows and shooting them, and the deer's hitting the cameraman. That was the video that put us on the map.
one. The one that ran the camera guy over? Yeah.
2 times in one video. And so that was in 2010.
Holy
Yeah.
shit.
And that video went to like 50,000 views, and YouTube is still kind of new at the time. That was unheard of.
Yeah.
And then that sort of put us on the map for that. And as we started progressing, we can kind of go into this and we go right into the traditional stuff.
Let's rip it.
But with YouTube, when we first started, becoming a YouTube partner was less than 1% of the people who applied for a YouTube partnership became a YouTube partner,
I don't even know what that is. What is a YouTube partner?
being monetized.
Oh. Wow.
So if you are monetized, you're technically a YouTube partner.
So back in the day.
That's what it was called. I don't pay attention to what it's called anymore because
Yeah.
I'm so far removed from that old
well,
school
and it
thinking.
seems like everybody does it at this point.
So at that time, you had to maintain so many uploads, so many thousands of views per week, and you had to maintain that through a 3-month period.
Wow.
Well, in 3 months, October, November, December.
Yeah, you're cranking.
Cream of
had
the
that.
crop, yeah.
Yeah.
So I applied in late 2009 or something, got approved in 2010, and we were making like 3 cents a day on a video, and we're like, this is awesome.
We are getting rich.
Yeah. And so we just kept making videos. That kind of drove us. Then following kept coming, and then we're just like, well, this could go somewhere. Our peak was probably 2012, you think?
Probably somewhere
That was
in
probably
there.
about the time we were at the top of our game, where everybody was wanting to grab a camera. Everybody,
You're
all of our
just
friends were
producing
wanting to,
content.
and it was just, I was editing everything, just throwing it on there.
Yeah, because
And
it seemed like every month there was something to do, a season.
Sure.
You know what
Yeah.
I mean, like
Yeah, you start thinking about it.
January, you're still in Flintlock season.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? February comes, you're in
Trapping.
yeah, he
still, you
trapped
know
that
what I mean?
coyote up on my hill.
So you got February and March is like your beaver trapping. Then
Yep.
you know what I mean?
Trout
Then
season in
you're looking
April.
into the shed hunting season.
Yeah, and turkey hunting. Yeah.
Then trout season, turkey hunting.
Yeah, just
You
let
get
it
into
rip.
June, you got this rattlesnake hunting. July, turtle trapping comes in. Frog hunting comes
Yeah.
in July 1st. Bow fishing.
Yeah.
I mean, it was just
It was
that's all your brain thought
non-stop.
about. That's
Yeah.
what
Just-
you're. What can we do next? What can we do next that we've been doing all of our lives that no one's ever
And did
done?
it seem like it was like as you guys were giving, it was producing?
Yeah,
Like,
it was-
Oh
it
yeah,
was
I mean
easy.
we were just growing, and the money from YouTube just kept getting bigger and bigger and bigger, and it got to the point where it's like, okay, now what are we going to do? So basically, what happens is how I have it set up is, I'm the main editor, the creator,
Mhm.
everything, and so all those guys.
Can I ask just for context, like hundreds of dollars, thousands of dollars, like you guys would make from YouTube, or
Like a year?
sure, whatever,
Yeah, a couple thousand.
a year?
Yeah,
Okay,
I mean at the height of it.
okay.
And so now it's not that.
Sure.
So
that's what I mean back then. I'm just asking for context. Like if you guys were like, hey, we can build a business out of this, or
and that's where I ended up. So at that time, there was a TV show that was being produced called HUNTR Outdoors, and they were from Ridgeway, St. Mary's area, something like that. Ridgeway. And so they got a hold of us and said, hey, we don't have enough footage for our first season. And, you guys have some good footage. Do you want to be on TV? And a lot of people don't realize this is where I started coming into the industry and learning stuff real fast of what I thought was completely backside. People's like, oh, why aren't you on TV? And why aren't you doing that? And I'm like, you don't make money being on TV. You don't just go on TV and make money. You got to put yourself on TV and make money. And you got to make sure that you get a return on whoever gave you that money.
Yes.
And if you stop getting a return,
you're out.
Then you're out. And so I said, well, free advertising, for our channel to show more people. That's cool. Yeah, why not? So we just gave them some footage of me rattlesnake hunting, you guys goose hunting. And we're still being, you see them, some of our stuff in our commercials today. And you might see it up in North Central PA and some of the restaurants up there. They play videos of stuff. But that was sort of like, you scratch our back, we'll scratch yours. Just we'll give you some product, hunting and fishing products for free and stuff like that. And we weren't trying to be a sponsor or anything like that.
Sure.
We didn't really gain anything other than we can actually now say that
we're on TV.
That was just cool.
We were on TV.
And so we were on there for a couple seasons.
Yeah.
Just a couple episodes.
And that Tom Bob, they made some like of their own products and stuff.
Yeah,
I remember that.
A powdered metal company that made they compressed metal with infused fish oil inside of the metal for a fishing lure. That was one of the things. And then they were a big supplier of lead-free round balls shot to California.
Oh, okay.
So the
which
lead
is now
shot
expanded
was
a lot.
Like tungsten heavy stuff.
Back in the day before the TSS actually hit the market.
It was really expensive at the time. And but yeah, it was sort of like that thing. It wasn't anything where there was no paper sign, but they were kind of like, in case you guys ever do get big, you might want to trademark and make an LLC. And
was their show on like a network?
Yeah.
Where was it?
It was on the Pursuit channel.
On Pursuit.
And they were on the local
it's
channel
called Tom Bob?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Are they still,
rings a bell.
They still...
I don't know. I
can't.
I don't look on TV. I don't watch TV.
I don't either.
I canceled my dish when the Steelers lost the Super Bowl in 2010, and I said, that's it.
Yeah, I'm done. We're cashing
in. Like, there's been a presidential election since then?
No, if I'm on TV, it's Netflix or YouTube, and it's just like...
We're on the... I thought I paid extra for the Outdoor Channel and all those stuff, and I'm like, the only thing I ever watched on TV was really the news and maybe sports, but then I'm like, wait a minute. I get that on my phone, and I go to a friend's house to watch it.
Yeah.
And so 2010, I haven't had TV since, and I just haven't. And so anything is just all YouTube that I watch.
Yep.
And I barely have time to watch anybody else on YouTube. I don't really watch anybody on YouTube because as we started filming, we started to replicate what we were seeing on TV.
Mm-hmm.
And it just put a real bad taste in my mouth.
Yeah.
Because I was watching scripted hunts.
Yeah.
That's all I was watching. Everything I grew up watching,
was a lie.
You realize.
Everything was a lie.
I got to say this because this was the one that did me in. It was Michael Waddell.
Mm-hmm.
He was on a turkey hunt.
Mm-hmm.
And he's sitting there and he's waiting.
Mm-hmm.
And the cameraman is behind him, okay?
Mm-hmm.
And he zooms up to Michael and he's facing, looking back to the camera. He's facing straight away. And then the camera comes back, and the camera's in front of him, but then you see the cameraman in camo behind him. I'm like, wait a minute. Two cameramen.
Mm-hmm.
There's a cameraman filming the cameraman.
Two dragons.
To get this,
and
I'm thinking, they're not actually hunting. That gobble was not a real gobble. That was all, I'm like,
yep.
My whole world has been shattered. Mm-hmm. I'm like,
who am I?
I'm like, And so I'm like, I am not putting music to this. I am not doing that because we did that. And I'm like, I do not want to be fake.
Well, Blanton told us one this morning that I thought he said, there was some bad stuff happening. And, for the dramatic effect to fill 22 minutes. But he said he was watching one that bucks out in this field. They go back to the hunter. He pulls up his gun. He shoots. They don't show the impact shot. They show him walking up. The cameraman gets on the other side of the deer, like I found it first type of thing, which we've all seen, except the deer was a mount.
Oh my God.
There's a mount on the ground, and they never went up and like got it and picked it up. It was just the angle through a mounted deer head.
It's amazing.
And
it's like when they use a baby doll, like in movies. She used a real freaking baby.
Yeah. So, anyways, I get what you're saying.
That opened my eyes to how the whole industry happened, and I knew instantly I'm not going that route.
Yeah.
But we were still like, okay, let's see how big we can go now. Let's just do this for fun.
Because at this time, you know, from an industry, because I think I started Stone Road in 2013. So we were on the other side of the industry, right? And I'd worked for Cabela's previously, but I walked in kind of as the guy who had watched all this stuff and seen all these people. And it was like, this is going to be amazing. And you quickly see the other things, like from a sponsorship side and like how things may be. YouTube was never even discussed until 5 years ago, right? To the manufacturer. You meant nothing. Right. Everything. If you weren't on TV paying $200,000 in airtime, we didn't even. We'll give you some product, I guess.
Right.
Like, but honestly, in retrospect, what you guys were doing was the future. Nobody realized it.
I mean, we were. If you look back on it, we were sitting on a gold mine.
Yeah.
But something I mentioned towards the beginning. There's a real bad path that a lot of people take to get to that 15 minutes of fame or to get to that top tier level.
Yeah.
There's a lot of sacrifice, and there's a lot of bridges that are usually burned, personal problems, all that kind of stuff. And when you start looking back at a lot of those people that got to that point and ask yourself, you barely know half of the little personal stuff that goes on behind the scenes. Is it worth it? And I'm like, no, because like I said, for all of us guys, it would only really be one or two guys that would end up, and we would just be by ourselves, but we would be riding on the shoulders of the guys who helped produce the thing.
Right.
There's no getting back in. Today, there's getting back in.
Yeah.
Because I'm not subject to scrutiny to what I say, how I act, what I post. I don't have to worry about a company coming and saying, hey, listen, can you maybe not do this?
Yeah.
I can say free range about whoever I want, whatever I want. I have no consequences. If people stop watching my videos, that's okay, because guess what? We weren't doing it for you in the first place. We were doing it for friends and family, for our own memories,
that was the purpose out of the game.
For our own enjoyment. And it's the people who say, we love your stuff. I don't care if it's one person or 100,000 people, whatever. That just drives us to want to be better. And we want to make it family friendly. We want to make it so that everybody can watch, and we don't want to try to fake anything. And it's like, if we film, we film. If we don't, we don't. And then in that early year, when we were just racking up videos and everything, at the time, there were these companies at YouTube that were they were trying to get these YouTubers to try to become members of their product. They're like a marketing company.
Okay.
And they would say,
they wanted to be like your agency.
They wanted to be an agent, and they would say, hey, we can get you 15% more. And you know those videos that YouTube demonetized you on? Because it was still going on way back then. Do you want those removed? If you join our team, and we'll do that. And there was a lot of people in that early
almost like a
YouTube,
union.
Yeah.
Sure.
That
That's
joined
exactly
that
kind of what it was.
and were basically ripped to shreds from these like sharks, right?
Wow.
They were just good YouTube channels that said, sign me
we're
up,
in.
15% more. All you got to do is you're going to do my product. And all they were doing was, they knew these guys were little guys. A couple $100 here, under thousands of people that could be doing this. I don't know if you remember FPS Russia.
Yeah.
He had a buddy that was killed. Do you remember that?
Yeah.
I talked to him 1 week before he was killed. He was trying to get me because they had their own system trying to bring people on for that. And I said, I'll call you back. I'm going to think on it. And then the news came out.
Whoa.
So I have talked to a lot of people in the industry, and I've actually talked to people at YouTube. At one point in time, they were actually helping the YouTubers.
Yeah.
There was a small frame where they were actually helping. Now,
not so much.
You're done.
Yeah.
And they don't care.
Yeah.
And there was a lot of cutthroating back then. And then, so what happened was, after that happened, everyone's like, oh, there's actually money to be made.
That was that before the Google acquisition? I'm trying to think when that acquisition happened.
That would have been really early.
Yeah, it would have been in that 07, 08 time frame probably.
So as we were going with that, these guys are bringing in videos. Okay, now what are we going to do with this money? What are we going to do? Like, we're not big enough. We're not going to do this for a living. There's not enough money here for everybody. But like, how? Okay, now what are we going to do with it? Like, we put it all in a big pool or what? So I thought, okay, some of these videos would get demonetized, or they just wouldn't do anything. And it was always like the videos I thought I put the most amount of work in, and I'm like taking like hours and hours and hours of just my free time to do this,
to edit everything and do it.
Yep.
Yeah.
And as we're growing, I'm trying to make them better and better. So I'm putting more time into it. It's like, okay, I'll take a percentage and then you guys get a royalty. And every year we'll just do that. So you make out big or I don't make out. Because if the video doesn't do anything, then you got it for free. So that's how we decided to do that. So
that makes sense.
Those guys would just videotape, and it's like, hey, you want to do this? You want to do that? Because it got to the point where we were pumping out so much footage, like I can't do this.
Yeah, there's only so much you can edit and put out.
For everybody getting a camera and wanting to do this, and if we're going to keep growing and getting bigger, like I can't afford to hire somebody to do this. I'm just going to just do it for fun. We're trying to do this for fun, but now, yeah, money comes in. Things start to get wobbly, but that's the way we decided to do it, and it seemed to work out fine, so we kept going. And then before, there were lots of fake videos. We had lots of videos that were stolen, that was a big thing back then.
Really?
If you remember early YouTube with the star rating.
Yeah, I do.
So everything was rated by 4 stars, 5 stars. Well, let's say I remember there was a big boxing match. Pay-per-view, then it would come out on YouTube and everybody would go watch the highlights. There'd be 10 videos of that same thumbnail.
Yeah.
How would you know which one was the one?
Yeah.
Because you would click on the one that had the most views.
Yeah.
And it would be a fake video. How would you know which one? So that's when YouTube realized, oh, we got to start messing with the algorithm. And people were stealing videos, taking views from us. So it was a nonstop. If
just random accounts taking them?
Yeah. They were all overseas, India, stuff like that. Just stealing them and putting them, and then they got smarter. They started hiding them. Well, as YouTube started pumping more money, they got facial video recognition. They could tell that you had a 10-second clip in this one video that was 15 minutes long of 10 other hunting channels.
Yep, and it's getting knocked.
Yep. So they got it pretty much wrapped up. But at that time, you're fighting all this stuff. They're taking views from you. You can monetize them, and their monetization then ended up coming to you. But then I don't know if you remember, like 5 or 6 years ago, somebody walked into YouTube headquarters, started shooting.
Yes.
And because all the money, most of those people lost 70% of the revenue.
Yep, I remember that.
Almost 80 to 90%.
People
were making a living doing YouTube.
Yep.
And just said, my whole career is done. And it was all political.
Yeah.
It was all political.
All the major gun channels got knocked.
And I made a video about it, and here's what happened. It took me a while to figure this out. But he filmed a doe kill and a buck kill in the same week. With your recurve. You self-filmed it. Okay. Looking at those videos, not one was more bloody or gory than the other. Both of them demonetized, age restricted. Okay. At the same time. So I start making an appeal to each one, saying, usually this should be allowed for all ages. It's an educational video. There should be absolutely we're not violating anything.
Right.
So I said the same thing in both replies, sent them to YouTube. One came back, under manual review. So what that tells me is it was automatically kicked out without anybody seeing it.
Yeah, something triggered it and threw it out.
So I can upload it now, and before it's even uploaded, they already know. Could be a keyword or something. So the next one, thumbs up. So what that told me is it wasn't the same person that watched both of those videos.
No.
I sent them in at the same time. So if somebody has a political agenda that hates hunting at YouTube and watches this video in manual review,
Yep.
they
Subjective.
determine whether that video gets the thumbs up or the thumbs down. So it's not
Hence
consistent.
the resistance to censorship.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so YouTube doesn't want hunting to go away on YouTube. People
Right.
go, they're anti-hunting. Here's what they want. They're not anti-hunting. They are anti-losing money
Right.
politically. So they're saying this.
They're investors.
If we can keep the numbers of people without people leaving, what we're going to do is we're going to just take a little bit each time. And isn't that the way it goes?
Sure.
Today?
Slow leak.
They just take a little bit from us each time. And you get mad that this happens politically or some law or whatever, and they take a little bit here and they take a little bit here because they don't want you to just go away. They don't want to leave YouTube because you're bringing money in.
Yep.
But they want you to be in your own little echo chamber. They don't want you to be out there reaching people. And, you know, the big channels get hit the hardest.
Yeah.
And so we have been, it's sad. I've seen some small channels get hit hard.
Mm-hmm.
Thinking, why are we still here? The only thing I could think of is we're not uploading as much as we used to. We're not
Right.
in the
You're not as
limelight.
active.
We got
You're not
we
as
have
much
the
of a
numbers.
threat.
We're almost at 100 million views total
Wow.
in all of our videos combined, I think.
Have you had random videos
Or no,
from the
did I
past
say-
get flagged recently?
Maybe it was 10 million. No, yeah, maybe it was 100 million.
100 million sounds right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Have you had any videos come up flagged recently, like from way in the past? Like, why the hell did all of a sudden this come
Yeah,
up?
I had a mushroom hunting video.
Oh, that sounds right.
Got age restricted. I had a
the
bow.
shrooms.
I had a bow video where all I did was just videotape deer. Never even shot a deer. Just, hey, there's a deer, and I got this. I put my camera with the sights
Yep.
over the deer.
That's it.
And
No.
maybe that's what. But that doesn't make any sense because I'm showing a lot more gory stuff in other videos.
That's all, man. Well, it probably got reported.
That's
and
the
triggered.
reporting thing, and so I can tell that I don't get the amount of death threats that I used to.
Oh, that's nice.
But I got one yesterday because I videotaped skinning a deer or skinning a rattlesnake or something like that. So
Was it from an American or foreigner?
I don't know. I don't even check anymore. That might have even been on Instagram. I've been uploading a lot of my shorts. I'm having crossover.
We had
issues.
somebody replicate our HUNTR Podcast page on Facebook.
I ended up finding that out.
Yeah, that's not Jared posing in those videos.
I trust me. I reported it for you guys.
Yeah,
so.
we have a bazillion times for like
I didn't
child
really
pornography.
mind it.
and
I mean, on Facebook, it's like not like we monetize Facebook, so it's just more views. He
Yeah.
was
well, no,
cut
they're,
up a bunch of our
they're all
shit.
gone
Some
now.
people-
They removed everything
know.
but him and didn't
Yeah.
change the name.
Some people like that. I mean, we've had videos that were stolen that didn't get any that didn't get any views, and then were put on Facebook and had millions and millions of views.
I've seen some of your
His-
videos get
his
pulled
girlfriend-
from like hunting clips or whatever
Yeah.
and then it appears on Facebook for like 50 million views. I'm like, that's not these people.
Yep, and Facebook is no help. They
Yeah, they
just
don't
could
care.
care less if
They don't
somebody
care.
steals your stuff. But again, really, at the end of the day, it doesn't matter if it's stolen. It doesn't matter if YouTube goes away. It doesn't matter if the hunting money goes away from YouTube. That's what I mean. I'm still going to be videotaping.
Yeah.
We were doing it without YouTube. We didn't start YouTube and start filming. We were already filming our hunts before YouTube. We even knew YouTube even existed because all we were trying to do was show mom and dad and go to Shane's house and we'd all sit around and let's watch. Okay, fast forward that. Yeah, fast forward. Okay, stop. Wait, go back.
Yeah, that's what we did originally too. That was why we did it.
And then like I would have had a different camera from you. He'd have had a different one
Yep.
from me. And it's like my cord doesn't match up with your camera.
Exactly. Yeah. Well, I mean, I remember like you mentioned like digitizing them and stuff. I remember taking like the mini VHS tapes and stuff and then like putting them through some converter to like digitize them and they looked like dog shit. And it was like, okay, they're on my computer now,
Yeah.
you know? And it took whatever, an hour to like, digitize a 20-minute video. But
Yep.
yeah, I mean, it's weird because like obviously this is somewhat produced. Like, obviously we haven't cut anything. Nick will cut a couple things out, like when we went and took a leak. But like, other than that, like, it's not overly produced. And I still think like a lot of the stuff I watch on YouTube is what I would consider pretty raw form, right? Like that's what I've watched on YouTube since 2008 or whatever. It's like just raw form stuff. Now you're seeing, and it's kind of funny because you think about like when you start YouTube, like that's where you guys are. Then like all the outdoor stars are on TV. Well, where are all the outdoor stars now? YouTube. Right? And so it's this weird kind of shift that we've seen, but I still think like half the videos I watch on YouTube are I'm keyword searching whatever, like Pennsylvania rut hunt or something like that. And I don't know who comes up, but I'm like, yeah, I'll watch this video.
I want to see local stuff. That's what I'm looking for. I'm looking
90%
for
of the guys want to see
even if
that.
they make one video a year, that's what I'm going to watch. I'm going to watch maybe their deer hunting season, see how they did. And
it's a summary of their whole season.
And that might be a short time where I'm not videotaping anything or editing something. But now, like I said, with kids, it's different. But like Shane has always said, we're actually nothing special. We are just like everybody else who are trying to find time to hunt, have work, have jobs, who are sometimes tight for money here and there, trying to buy stuff ourselves. You know, we're not trying, you know, might have companies that, hey, we'll send you this or send you that. And it's like, well, listen, we're not signing any papers.
Yeah, sure, send it to me.
We're not going to have any restriction. If you send it to me, I can't guarantee you we even put in a video. But if you
not guilty
send it
plug
to me,
for Bear Butt Wipes, who just messaged us on Instagram and is like, we'll send you some. We're like, cool.
Yeah,
there they are.
I guess at the end of the day, with sponsors and me, like the way I looked at it is like, I never wanted to I feel like I'm a good enough outdoorsman that I can promote a lot of products, even for whatever it is.
Okay.
I feel like I'm good enough at some way, shape, or form. I can promote a product. With that being said, there's a lot of products out there that aren't very good. The last thing that I want to do is go and promote a product, and some 12, 14-year-old kid watches me use this thing,
spends his hard money on it,
goes and he's mowing all summer long.
Yep.
To go, you know what I mean, saving all of his money up to go buy a product.
Agree.
He's
Absolutely.
not going to be able to.
Yeah.
That was the basis of our side. Like,
you know what I mean? That's the bottom line of.
Yeah.
I guess part of our sponsorship.
Yeah.
That's where
stuff.
we're very. I'm very critical of the outdoor industry, only because everyone,
as you should be.
Everybody wants to bring their grassroots. I got to the top. Now I'm going to hang my grassroots out in front of my place. I'm just like you guys.
Yeah.
And no, you're not just like the normal guys that are trying to hunt. And that's where just being around people in the industry, I had companies say, hey, we'll deck out your whole crew with this. We'll give you all that. And it's like, I got to be honest with you. Like, I'm kind of fine with my old coat with a rag in it, with a rip in it. And like, yeah, it might be a really awesome product, but like maybe not everybody's going to use it. Maybe somebody's going to use your competitor and they don't want to use it.
Sure.
Like, now, if I say yes, then it's like, you're either in the videos if you wear this, or if not, you're out. And it's like, just so that we can have or our name under a pro staff, or try to get some free product that might be worth a couple $1,000s. It wasn't worth it. I don't want to be that guy. But there's lots of newcomers into YouTube. It's like, how do I get subscribers? How do I get views? I'm going to need to reach out. And the only way I'm going to do it is unless I work my butt off and try to kill a big buck and use that and then try to promote myself. And I'm a hard worker. If I can get myself in a magazine, maybe I'll write some articles. I'll save up money and I'll hire somebody to videotape me. And it's just like, there's so many people that send us messages. How do we do what you're doing? Because they think that we're doing this for a living because we have so many subscribers. I'm like, we just film when we want. And when I hear that, I said, listen, if you're gonna film, see if you like it. If you don't, you can still film and don't have to edit anything.
Yeah.
You don't have to put it on YouTube. Keep it for your own memories. I think people should actually carry a camera and videotape, and they don't have to put it on YouTube. Do it for yourself, for your kids and your kids' kids, that they can go back and say, man, I am so glad that my dad, like me, we would float the red bank river, and he would strap the camera. He had a mount that he put on a John boat that would that would aim with this is a VHS camera, the big shoulder camera on a mount.
It only had 17 minutes of battery life.
Yes, yes, and would videotape me and my brother as little kids fishing, catching smallmouth. And there was another time we're floating down the Red Bank Creek. I was probably 5, and there's a bear crossing the creek right in front of us, and we just started floating, being real quiet, and all you hear me in the video, and it's on YouTube, you hear me going, "Can I get behind the camera?" I wanted to be behind the camera. I could care less about the bear. So I don't know why. I don't know why that was, but I always wanted to be behind the camera and videotape. And that was maybe because I saw my dad always behind the video camera, always videotaping everything. And I'm so glad of the few things that he filmed that I have those.
Oh, yeah.
And yeah, I can put them on YouTube, but you don't have to put them on YouTube. You don't have to do anything. But it's for memories.
Oh, dude, I mean, you're speaking. So my family, I mean, they've been doing hunting camps since whatever, the 70s, but sometime in like the late 80s when the big over the shoulder came out, they started filming every deer camp. So they would go up Friday morning after Thanksgiving, hunt through Monday or Tuesday and then go home. So for, every year for 15 years, right, I had all of these films. And then I started doing it when I was 14, 15. Like I was the camera guy filming stuff. Well, I had all of those old, my grandma and grandpap actually had them, all the old VHS. So I digitized them and I uploaded them to Vimeo, and then I sent it to all the camp guys. And it's not public anywhere, right? But
they still have
every year about the same time, we're all in the same text chain, and it's like, hey, just watch like 89 from Turkey Mountain. Yeah. Like, you remember when he made the tomato wine and everybody was puking their brains out or what? Like, and there's no editing to it, right? It's just pure raw, like nothing. But like for, a couple weeks a year around gun season, everybody has access to those, hours and hours of old memory footage. And like, I watch it with my kids now, and like half those people are gone or they've never met them, and I just kind of walk them through like what that was like.
Yeah.
And that's what it's there for.
Sure.
Yep.
The HUNTR Podcast is brought to you by Quest Hunt Co.
Man, it seems like as technology and social media and stuff just gets incorporated into our daily lives in the deer season more and more, it's like we're always looking for ways to just dial it back, spend more quality time with deer hunters, and really make deer hunting and deer camps great again.
Yeah, and I mean, we've all been part of that annual buck pull, whether it's at your camp or the local fire department, and we're trying to bring that feeling back with Quest Hunt Co. to be able to compete against other people in your state, but also be part of a national competition.
You can sign up in as many states as you want to enter deer that at the end are going to get scored, and you have an opportunity to win some big prizes. And there's an in-person banquet in February that Jeremy and I are going to be at where those prizes are going to get held out. I think we're going to do some sort of live podcast or speaking. We'll figure that out. But just looking forward to spending time with people who sign up for the tournament.
Yeah, so you can go to Quest Hunt Co. and sign up. Use the code HUNTR15 at checkout. They'll save you a little bit of money, and then hopefully we'll be able to see you in Missouri in February of 25 at the annual convention.
To make this season a quest.
We've been contacted. I was contacted by Zach Faribaugh of Hunting Public.
Yep.
Back in 2018, wanted us to come on their deer tour.
Oh, really?
And they were just getting. I think at the time they had less subscribers than us.
Yeah, they're probably just getting going.
They were skyrocketing. They were getting well known, becoming a household name close to that time. And I'm thinking, how do you expect us to do this?
Right.
I'm thinking, we all have jobs. How in the world are you able to go from just starting a random YouTube channel to traveling state by state to hunt public land? I'm thinking, I don't know where you're getting your money and in the meantime to do this.
They didn't have it.
But good luck. I know.
They were your position in 2006 and 7,
Right. Right. But exactly what has happened, what I said, is you see either people have to expand and come in to keep the thing going.
Yep.
Or you see people slowly drop out. They're not as prevalent anymore. And that's that. In order to get to the top, that's what you have to do. And it's
absolutely.
And it's just like you have to. And a lot of those guys, the amount of time away, it's just like I wouldn't be able to do it.
Well, that's what I was going to say. Like we love Warb and Greg, and I've known those guys for 10 plus years. When they were working with Winky and Midwest Whitetail, I was there with them all the time, and. Warb's now married and he has 2 stepchildren, and, Greg and Mindy are traveling a lot, and it's like, man, is it feasible to be gone 60 days a year filming like at some point it's great. I mean, I love their stuff. I like what they do, but it's easier when you're 22 and single than when you're 32 or 35 or 40 in a family. Like it just isn't feasible.
And that's happened with us.
That's life.
Like they said, that's life. Exactly it.
Yeah, that's all it comes into.
And if you're not good at self-filming, that's the thing. You might see me more often in the videos because I was always self-filming.
You just always had a camera.
Like Shane and some of those other guys always had somebody filming.
Sure.
Well, then when it got to the point where I can't film you or you can't film me, it was like it's either self-filming or bust.
Or nothing.
Yep. And so Shane has, picked it up. Some of the guys have done it too. But it's like
I love self-filming.
And there's guys.
It's not easy.
No.
Yeah.
But I love it.
Yeah.
But I always said you have to be a cameraman first and a hunter second.
Yeah.
And I'm beyond just getting the kill on camera. It has to be Kodak moment. It's got to be zoomed in. So it's like
not me.
Boom. I'm moving it. I'm zooming.
It's in frame. Is that a task?
Like I'm gonna be getting caught doing this, moving it, and again, it's gonna happen. I'll probably not push record,
especially with a bow, because it's like once I get locked in, like that's a spot that I need to hit.
Yeah,
it's
then
like,
it's everything's out.
It's zoomed out. That's how you see a lot of the self-filmer.
Well, that's why, I mean, like we said, Jared and I are using these little, what are they, like razor arms?
Pocket arms,
yeah. And then it's got the little painted arrow thing that holds this thing in, and like, that's it. Like, the rest of the time, I'm texting my kids or whatever, and then it's like, got to get in frame.
Do you remember how many, you guys probably know somebody, and everybody probably knows somebody that got some type of bow-mounted camera.
Oh, absolutely.
And everybody forgot to turn it on.
Oh, yeah.
Like, hey, you got that camera. Yeah, I forgot to turn it on.
Yeah.
That's what happened every time, and people realized.
Or they had the old Tacticam on the front, and it was just looking like this the whole time. I'm like, did you actually hit that
follow
thing?
It? You got to follow it like that with your bow. And that's where, you got to be thinking like, okay, as soon as the shot happens, it's like bow down and zoom out and start trying to follow the deer, because it's a little bit of a challenge for me. It's hard for me to even kill a deer now, not on camera. It's like I have to get it on camera. I don't know. It's just such a challenge to do it. And I can constantly look back. I think that's what I can do.
Well, you're walking around was what, like, because I was self-filming a lot at the same time. And, it's fine. I've got my camera arm. I've got everything set up in the tree. Like, once I'm locked in, I'm locked in. But when you're around doing tripod stuff, I'm like, I don't know about that shit.
Yeah, it's you're carrying the tripod, and then when it comes, it's open the tripod, get ready, zoom in, and then look down, and then just wait, and then it move, and you have no idea how many times like I'm getting busted.
Sure.
Like all the time, and I don't really show too much of that, but if I do, it goes on the second channel and stuff like that. But that's where I said to those guys, I said, if you guys don't want to film, you don't have to. It's all whoever wants to do it. If we all decide, hey, this year there's no videos because we just don't have time, then that's the way it goes. Because we're not in it for the money, we're not in it for the fame, we're not in it for anything. It's just that if we can't make money, if we can't make memories for ourselves, times are pretty tight for whatever reason.
Yeah.
It's just too much going on. Some guys, I just can't get that camera to do that. I'm focusing on trying to get my son or somebody going with that.
Yeah, but the old videos will still live evergreen. People will go back and watch and find and trip on those. And it's wild to think back to that time frame. And it's like, not like what could it have been, but like the momentum that was happening at that time. And was just completely unrealized by everybody. Like everybody just thought YouTube was this free thing that it was not ever going to matter.
Sure.
I told Shane on the way here, I said, we've done it all. We have done everything that we wanted to do. We got you got your 15 minutes of fame.
Yep.
We did it. I'm like, and we're still growing, and we're barely doing anything, because I heard a podcast that the guys from Hunting Public was on. And they asked Zach, they said, hey, like, what hunting shows did you watch on TV? He goes, I didn't watch TV. This is back in like 2018 or something. And they said, somebody sent it to us because we don't have time to listen to that. But one of our people who watch us, watch them. And so they sent it and said, hey, listen to this. They mentioned you. And I was like, what? So found out where they were talking. And they said, well, what did you watch? He goes, I didn't really watch anything. He said, in high school, he goes, I just watched YouTube. And they said, what channel did you watch? He goes, Leatherwood. I just watched Leatherwood Outdoors.
Which makes sense because Zach was an Ohio guy.
Yeah, he goes, that's all I watched. So the guy that's like one of the biggest celebrities was looking at us as like, and then reaching out to us, and it's just kind of crazy to
makes sense
to go. That's awesome, and God has blessed us because, like I said, we are not anything special than the average deer hunter in Pennsylvania. We're not better hunters. We don't kill bigger bucks than ever. There's people that kill bigger bucks than us on public land all the time, and there's people that are better cameramen than me. There's people that are better hunters than me, and that's okay. That's what I want the younger generation, the people that are trying to start YouTube and trying to do this, is get your priorities straight.
Yeah.
I say God first, family second, and then whatever else, make sure it falls in line. And so that's where, like I said, I'm big in the family thing with deer hunting now, that it's brought family that are from different states closer. It's because of during deer camp and deer season.
Yep.
And that traditional robe of going back, and we talked about whiskey and talking about how things are made and going through the history, and then me going back in period of Flintlock outfit, and not just using the rifle, like getting in the garb of how they dressed back then, and then realizing, and you appreciate what you have now today when you hunt like that. It really makes you thankful for what we have, and which is why I really don't think inlines or percussion should ever be in the Flintlock season, because it's just one step of completely just making it into another.
It's obsolete.
And if that happens, you'll have to take away from other, because then it will become part of a management problem.
For sure.
Like I said, that season is not a management season. It is solely there for heritage and for people to reflect, and it's supposed to be hard.
Yeah.
That's the point of it.
Yeah.
Because you're not going to kill a lot of deer. But I'm telling you, if you can hunt that season and you pay attention and you put the same work that you do in archery season in the late season, you just might just have the same ability to kill a buck in late season as you do in archery season.
Yeah.
Using the snow, powder, quiet, sneaking up on them. You can see better.
I love Flintlock season.
Yeah,
you can do that, or you can get a whole bunch of guys. We used to get a whole bunch of guys.
That's what I did.
And just do deer drives with Flintlocks.
That's what we did.
And it's awesome when you hear that gun go off. You're like, finally somebody's gun went off.
Yeah.
Because then you hate doing a drive and you go, okay.
Quiet.
What happened? Like, click, click.
Yeah, click, click, or slid by. Yeah, I mean, I grew up in 2B. I had a pocket full of tags, right? And I mean, we just shot the shit out of does, and every once in a while we would put up a buck, but I mean, not often, right? It was mainly just every day, just going out and trying to kill does, which was fun.
Yep.
And that's the kind of stuff we've had so many discussions lately around, and even this one, like around what gets people fired up to shoot does again. We've talked about the loss of processors, which a lot of us cut up our own deer, but a lot of people don't, or don't have the time or the skill to do it. And so loss of processors and or cost of processors is absolutely a big aspect.
Yeah. Let me ask you a question on that note. If people were able to shoot 2 bucks, and they were able to shoot 2 bucks, would they take them to the processor?
They would still shoot them. They would figure it out later.
$3. People would do it.
Yeah.
So I don't think it's really
rooted in
about that, because I know people.
So they're just using it as a crutch?
3 buck tags, they're going to try to fill 3 buck tags. You give them 8 doe tags, and they will try everything to not shoot a doe until they get that first buck,
Yeah.
And that's
it's our argument with the meat hunters.
Yeah.
Like, I have nothing against meat. I mean, I eat a ton of venison every year, but when they're like, it's not about the trophy, it's not about this, I hunt for meat, and I'm like, then shoot does.
Sure.
Yeah.
And they're like, well, I mean, wait a minute.
Here, I want to say something about this, and this is something I've thought about a lot because I hear it so much is, well, if I don't shoot it, my neighbor will.
Yeah.
Now, if you are going to take that logic, you got to apply that logic in reverse also.
Which is left brain thinking, Jared.
Logic.
Okay? So let's say you're assuming, you have to assume that if you let that deer, it's a 100% chance that somebody else is going to kill it. That's the mentality. That's the logic,
Yep.
right? So now Why can nobody ever use this logic? If I pass it up, my neighbor won't shoot it.
That would seem like the complete
It's
inverse.
the exact same logic.
Yeah.
But people don't want to. They said no. That can't happen.
Yeah.
Well, listen. I know
how is that the same logic?
Because you're saying
if I don't shoot it,
you're still saving a buck for next year.
It's 100% either way. If you say, if I don't shoot this, there's 100% chance my neighbor's going to kill this deer.
Yep.
Right? If you inverse it and say, if I
pass it up,
it's
100%. It lives.
It's the same thing. It's 100% either way.
But people don't want.
That's your logic thinking.
It rubs people the wrong way.
That doesn't make any sense to me. I don't understand
because here's what they're saying. They're thinking that the deer that they pass up will not make it through the season.
Right.
100%.
100%. There's no evidence.
Okay.
It's 100% guaranteed.
Well, why would you say there's no evidence?
Because they're shooting it. They're shooting it.
That's the reason they're shooting it.
Evidence
That's the
do you
reason
have?
why they're shooting that deer.
Yeah, because they believe it will die.
Yes.
They believe that it
Yep.
will not make it through the
So
season.
what's the difference
They
then
have
if you
zero
don't shoot
evidence.
it to believe that it would survive?
Because what's
Then
changed?
people go, well,
other than you didn't shoot it, or you did shoot it. So
You
Right?
didn't shoot it. So
When-
that's the benefit. Like if you didn't shoot it, then it could also have a 100% chance of surviving.
you got to use that same logic. If you're going to assume that
I don't
100% that deer's going to die without zero evidence, you don't know what that deer's going to do when you let it go.
You would only believe that if there is evidence, which in most cases is going to be history. So in prior years, most people that I know that would say, well, I'm not going to pass it because the neighbors will shoot it.
No, wait a minute.
It's
wait a
because in years leading up to that, that's probably what's
minute.
happened.
Okay, you can use that one time, but now because that one time, it's every time. There's no bucks making it that way because they kill it before it.
At a certain point, though, where is the tipping point?
Huh?
I mean, you're not passing 3-year-old deer in Ohio,
no,
or
wait.
you're not shooting 3-year-old deer in Ohio and saying, well, they'll never survive.
How do you know?
It's because of what's on the landscape. So I can run trail cameras, I can hunt it for years on end, I can communicate with the neighbors, and I can gain a perception with a certain degree of accuracy. It's never 100%.
Yeah.
To say, hey, it's likely that this 2-year-old will live. And I feel confident. Okay, most people are probably not going to shoot that 2-year-old.
Right.
This 3-year-old will live because it's in this certain area, or it's not because those neighbors will shoot this type of a deer. And we got corn piles where we're at, and cell crams and crossbows and gun seasons, and they will die. So it's pretty damn close to 100%.
Okay.
And my track record on guessing it is at least 90%.
Now that's only half of it. I haven't got into the second half of this argument yet, because what that assumes is you're assuming that your neighbor is going to fill the tag, right? So why doesn't anybody say, if I shoot this deer, why don't they say, well, my neighbor's still going to fill his tag? Because he doesn't pass up any deer, so he's still going to pass up a deer. So you know what? Are you trying to see what I'm saying? Is if you let one deer go, okay, you and another guy, you let one deer go, your neighbor can only kill one buck.
Mm-hmm.
You're going to let one deer live.
Mm-hmm.
If you kill a buck,
Mm-hmm.
and you assume that
That
your neighbor's
math
going
is
to kill
accurate.
your neighbor's going to kill a buck anyways, because everybody thinks everybody's neighbor's going to kill a buck every year in deer season. That's 2 dead bucks.
Mm-hmm.
You don't have any bucks living for the next season.
Mm-hmm.
There's always, and this is just every, this breaks down when we start getting deeper into, how people think of, well, this one time the neighbor did this. Yeah,
Sure.
everything sort of breaks down at some point in time. But what I'm saying is I know people today that are within range of deer that I hunt that really didn't pass up any deer, that are now telling me I'm passing up deer. I'm not shooting anything under 140. You told me that 10 years ago. I said, there's no way that person would ever in their lifetime ever pass up a deer.
Mm-hmm.
Now, with that said, don't hear me say you have to pass up every legal buck. Only shoot big ones. I'm not saying that. Because that's where a lot of people go into, oh, you're a trophy hunter. Oh, you're only after the rack. Well, then you need to explain to me why I'm just laying out doe on opening day when I have monster buck running around. The whole point of it is you guys have talked about this before. The whole hunting industry with big deer, and you have to have this to get gratification, to be respected. somebody shoots a small deer, gets blasted on social media. Why did you shoot that? And then you have the excuse making. Like, if you guys watch our videos with Ron, he's not everybody thinks he's my uncle, but he's not.
Uncle Ron.
Uncle Ron. Man, myth, legend. He is everybody. He's a cult favorite. And so
he's feeling pretty good about the Steelers right now.
Oh yeah, he loves the Steelers. He's a big gun guy. You might see him at gun shows all around. He does that on the side. And so he just gets so pumped he can't sleep. Like, I have never seen anybody who just
he's wired every opening morning in those videos, man. He's wired.
And he never makes an excuse for anything that he shoots. He's killed one of the biggest bucks we've ever had on the property, and he's killed small bucks. He's killed medium-sized bucks. He just is a killing machine, and he is happy with every single one. And that's the type of person I want to hunt with. I don't want to hunt with the person that passes up a deer, then shoots a deer because it was the last day, and then starts making excuses.
Yeah, I don't want that either.
I would rather you shoot the smallest deer I have on the property and be completely happy with it.
Agree.
So that's where this excuse
That's my problem with the people who start any social media posts. Well, not the biggest or whatever. I can't. I mean, maybe that's a fact, right? Like, I mean, if you've killed big deer in the past, like, you're probably not going to just continue to kill bigger deer. But why you don't have to justify that to anyone. If you're happy with that deer,
that's it. Yeah, you're happy. You don't.
Who cares? Yeah, killed a buck. It's awesome.
So I think it's funny when a lot of people, I get so many messages going, man, I'd love to hunt your property. And I think, why? Because I know places that are probably better. You know, there's a big stigma there that if you have private property, you better not touch foot on public land.
Oh, now, I agree. Yeah, I hear that all the time.
Michael Waddell, when he was on your podcast, he set that straight. He goes, I'm going to tell you right now, I hunt private and public.
Yeah.
And there ain't nothing wrong with that.
I mean, we had a pile of public in Kansas. And
I do here.
There's nothing wrong with that. I mean, okay.
All mine are on the mountain right now on public.
For me, I'm fine. I know I can go places and kill bigger buck. I'm not against it. But I personally, I hunt right next to my house.
Yeah,
so
it's your home farm.
I have no interest in, I can go and start knocking on doors and maybe finding a big buck. I don't have the time. I don't have the interest. I've killed a couple, I've killed a Pennsylvania record book buck, okay? In Pennsylvania record books, not Boone and Crockett, with a rifle and 2 Pope and Youngs. I'm happy with that. That's buck every 8 years.
Really freaking impressive in the state of Pennsylvania.
And passing up all types of deer. Look at what I get for just shooting doe, and I still got the antlers.
Yeah.
And so I think there's a lot of prioritizing in the hunting, not in the industry, but I guess I could say in the industry itself. But I think the intake that people have and the perception, I think the biggest problem with that is it's a breakdown in the culture.
Oh, it's the biggest fear for me in the next generation. Is like it's from the people who are discouraged because they don't have access or they're hunting public and it's super pressured. And on the other end of the spectrum, it's to the 7 and 8 year old kids killing booners, with a crossbow or whatever. It doesn't matter what you're killing it with. You're 7 or 8 year old and killing booners. Like those spectrums are dramatically affecting what this next hunting generation is going to look like. You're going to have people who are completely disheartened, not just because they failed, because I'm sure all of us at this table as we were young were failing miserably, and that's what made us better, and that's why we're hooked with it. But they're failing, and all they're seeing is just everybody else jamming success down their throat, right? And then on the other end, these guys are going to just continue to kill big bucks, and it's going to be easy, and they're going to be like, I don't want to do that anymore. Like, all we have to do is go out and sit on the field and I'm going to kill one. Like, it's just super easy. Those two things are really much a cancer to the future of the hunting tradition.
Yeah.
And, I don't have a good solution for it, but I think that we've talked about it on this podcast a lot. I'm sure you've heard it, is like the continued liberalization of seasons and opportunity increases are not necessarily making this thing better.
Do you know what you just said? You can be called an anti-hunter. by other hunters in the
Sure.
state.
Probably.
Oh, yeah.
You just said
Sure.
people think that if you want to be for less seasons and less opportunity,
Absolutely.
what they think is less opportunity, and they look at that as you're an anti-hunter and that you
Absolutely.
you hate youth.
In
You-
certain
That's the way
places,
people
I'm
look at
against
you.
hunter recruitment. I don't think,
Yeah.
and it's not because I don't want more hunters. It's like we don't have anywhere to put them. So when we bring them in, their experience is going to suck and they're going to leave.
The PGC came out in 2009 with an article called "Fewer Hunters, Fewer Deer," and they tried to make the correlation to say, is the reason that we went from 1.2 million hunters down to 800,000 hunters because there's fewer deer? From 1982 up until 1992, I think it was, or maybe it was 95. But there was more than a 10-year period where animals harvests increased, but hunter dropped. They were killing more deer. So by the end of 10 years, they were killing a lot more deer,
And
a
we were
lot
still
more
losing
bucks,
hunters.
and they were still losing hunters. So the Game Commission in 2009 said it has nothing to do with killing more deer.
No.
Having more opportunities to kill more deer.
No.
When they asked people and they surveyed them, they said, what is it? And they said, lack of time.
Yeah.
People just were not prioritizing hunting like they used to.
Yeah.
It's a cultural thing.
Well,
Back in the day, people took off work.
Yeah.
It was a completely different mindset. But now everybody's getting caught up in the rat race to keep up with the Joneses that I got to have this, I got to have this, and I got to have this payment. You have all these payments. Now I got to take a second job. And then I got to take the kids here and take the kids there. Back in the 40s, there was none of that. Back in the early 80s, there was very few of that. It's getting worse and worse as time goes on, where everyone is just getting busier and busier and busier. And there's a priority mentality change in the culture of it. I got to say this. It correlates with the breakdown of the family.
Well, that's what I was going to say. I don't know if it was Rex or Tonkovich that said it on here, but he was like, the degradation of the American family is the demise of hunting. And if you look back into like the 70s and 80s and you look at things like, and not to pick on anyone, but you look at divorce rates and things like that, completely aligns.
Sure.
100%. Like to a T.
Yes. And that's where, I keep talking about my worldview. And when I say that, I'm coming from a Christian perspective. So before I looked at the world was everybody's trying to do good. Everybody does their best thing. And, everybody that says they believe in God is on the right track. And that's the way. You can go to church and be a good boy. And, that's the way it is. But in 2013, God radically changed my life, and it changed my view of hunting and the way I view everything, the way I view politics, the way I view family, the way I view everything I do in my entire life, because I realized that there's no way I can be this good person and just, I'm going to be good. I'm going to be good on the outside. Like, yeah, I believe in God and I go to church and all that kind of stuff. Listen, you can be baptized. You can go to church every Sunday. You can read your Bible every day. You can do all those things. None of those things save you. You can't even choose to be saved, in my opinion. That's literally what the Bible says. Jesus says, no one can come to me except the Father who sent me draws him. John 6:44. That whole understanding means that we start off dead. The whole human race starts off dead. Before you're even born, you're dead in your sin and trespasses. From Adam, God created Adam. From Adam, death spreads. The reason why we all die, sin. And everybody sins, so everybody dies. That's a problem. We're going to be judged on the 10 Commandments, and everybody's going to think God's going to grave on a curve. Well, I did pretty good. As long as I'm not bad as my neighbor, I should be golden.
Right.
Or I'm not Hitler. And that's not how it works. So when I completely understood the gospel that, hey, listen, I hear what Christ did. He paid for my sins, right, on the cross. And putting my faith and trust in him, I have everlasting life. If that is true, and you believe in your heart, confess with your mouth that Christ is Lord, and you will be saved, right? And you acknowledge that you are completely and totally depraved as a human being. Like everything that everybody does that is not found in Christ is sinful and wicked, no matter how good it was on the outside.
Mm-hmm.
So when I look at like the Pharisees, they were like the church people. They were the good people that everybody wanted to look at. They did the right things. They said the right things. They gave. They did help. But in their heart, it was all deception. They did it for themselves. They got their glory. People looking at them said, hey, look, these guys, this is how I need to model my life. And it wasn't looking to somebody else. It was like, pull your bootstraps up and be a good boy and stop doing the bad thing and start doing the good thing, and you'll be okay. And that's not what it is. And so when I heard the gospel for the first time and realized, listen, God has saved me by grace, it was because God did something in me. He changed my heart. So he took that heart of stone where I was all about me. I was a deceptive person. I was a liar. I was a cheater. And that's the way I would have been with everybody. On the outside, I looked like a good person. I considered myself a Christian. I went to church. But I was deceived. I was a false convert, in my opinion. If I were to die, I would have went straight to hell. Based on the 10 Commandments, break one, you break them all. So I heard the gospel, and I believed, and I only believed because God imparted me with faith. There's an exchange that happens. God gives me the faith. God gives me the repentance. You can't just choose to be a Christian. It's not how it works. Christianity isn't a decision that you just, you know what? Based on the evidence, I'm going to be a Christian. You know what? Based on the evidence, you cannot be a Christian. That's not how it works. God saves you, and when he saves you, he opens your eyes to understand the Bible. That's what the Scripture says. When you understand the Scripture, it tells you everything about humanity and how it is to the last day. And when I started looking back and going, man, even when I thought I was doing a good work and when I thought I was doing good things for God, they're filthy rags. They're worthless. Didn't recommend me to God no one bit. People think, oh, I sinned this day, but I'm going to make it up and God will be happy with the next. And that's not how it works. You're either in Christ or you're not in Christ. And so when I looked at that, you don't do good works and get in heaven. You get saved and then good works follow. And when I look at that and I see everybody in the outdoor industry, I look at hunting, I look at people in general, I just see, if you're not in Christ, I just see selfishness. I see behind the scenes. I know how your heart is because the Bible tells me if you're not in Christ, I know exactly how your heart is. It's all for yourself. It's all selfishness. It's all vanity of vanities. You can make it to the top. Solomon had everything. What happens if you kill every single big buck that you ever wanted?
Mm-hmm.
Who cares? Because you're going to die. Somebody's going to eat all that stuff. Someday it's just going to be thrown and burned away because that mount's going to rot away. And why? Why spend all this time worrying about your neighbor killing a buck? Why spend all this time worrying about trying to get views and subscribers? Why? It's just selfishness, vanity. It means nothing. And at the end of your life, you're going to be, was it all worth it? Was it worth the bridges that you burnt?
Mm-hmm.
So, that's what Christ came, born of the Virgin. He's God in the flesh. And he obeyed those laws, those 10 commandments. He did that. So in court, who do you give evidence to in court? What most people do, they give evidence to the judge.
Mm-hmm.
Well, you're not the judge. We're not the judge. God's the judge. And so there's no evidence. The evidence is plain and clear. Everybody's sinful human being and needs saved. And so I believe, and even after you're saved, we're still in a war with sin. That's what the Scripture says. It doesn't mean that you stop sinning. Everybody goes, all those Christians in that church are hypocrites. And I really don't like the phrase when people say, I'd rather spend being in the tree stand thinking about God than being in church thinking about hunting. That's a cop-out. I that's not a real thing. That's just somebody trying to sound like they're a good person.
Mm-hmm.
And so I have prioritized my entire life that God and my family on Sundays come first. And now I started looking. That's why I'm bringing friends and family on opening day to try to shoot these doe when they have their own property to hunt. that have lots of doe. I'm like, hey, come sit with me in your stand.
Yeah.
I want somebody to be here. I'm not about, don't come here because you might screw up me shooting this big buck. You know, it's like, hey, you want to shoot a doe on video? I'll videotape you. That big buck comes through, I'll try to shoot it. But if not, hey, first doe pops out, you pop it. If that big buck runs out behind that doe, I don't care, because these are memories that I get to share with you.
Yeah.
And that's what people are forgetting about hunting. And
Agree.
They completely lose track of it. They make hunting and deer an idol, and they become obsessed with it. And I know what that's like. And man, I'm telling you, put your faith in Christ. He will open your eyes. He will open your heart. He will change you. And that burden of striving, of trying to get there. And then you can still go out and hunt. And you can still go out and try to be in the industry. And you can still try to be in the top. But you're going to do it with right motives. You're going to do it to glorify God. So, I mean, that's the whole point of the cross. Christ came, died for our sins, rose again, and there's going to be a judgment. So that is my worldview. That's where I'm coming when I am speaking. It's always on my mind. It's always on the back of my mind and talking with everything. So most people who say that would not take the time to even say something like that.
Sure.
But that's where I'm at now. And so that's where my whole life is evolved around my church family. They're going to come first. If somebody in my church family or something needs help on opening day or whatever, that's what I'm doing. So bringing that opportunity and that breakdown of the family that causes families to stay together is glorifying God. And you see the start of it, all that other stuff that we just talked about, the breakdown of culture. It starts with God. There's a lot of people who call themselves Christians that are not actually Christians. They deny essential truths of the faith, and you see that breaking down, and that goes down into the breaking down of the family. And then the breaking down of the family, it's all of me, a me culture. And sometimes there's a facade put up and saying, oh, no, I'm all about family, and I'm all about this, and I'm all about that. But there's deceptive motives, and I still got to watch myself.
Yeah,
because I can still be guilty of it. I praise God for what Christ did on my behalf, because I don't have to worry about that. But I'm still a sinful human being, and so that's the whole point of looking at this stewardship. We're supposed to be stewards,
absolutely,
of the land. We need to keep the trees and even the little birdies and all that time. I'm not saying be an environmentalist. If anything, I'm more of an environmentalist than an environmentalist.
Agree.
I'm not saying stop hunting and stop doing all this stuff for the Tweety birds. That's wacko stuff.
But it's part of the ecosystem.
But what I'm saying is there's people that want to completely ruin everything just for the sake of just bringing a deer. They become completely obsessed. All for themselves. And, yeah, the property may be worth that, but maybe their kids don't want it. I'm looking at something where I want to do what my grandfather did for me, is with timber, is to build a legacy land.
Agree.
I want to build that. Some people are like, I'm not having a timber come in there because I love the trees. I love the big trees. I don't want to see them go. But then there's other people who go, I want every single tree down. I'm going to take all this out. I want to plant all this, and I'm going to do it for the deer. And the land isn't worth anything but for deer hunting.
Right.
You can't get any generational income off of that.
Yep.
So I think for landowners, and there's a lot of people in the habitat realm on YouTube, I think giving terrible advice.
Oh, absolutely.
Because they're doing it, they're giving excellent advice for the people who are searching for that type of advice.
Sure, but it's not pure
But
stewardship.
It's not the right advice.
Yeah.
Because it goes against the grain of what they think and what they feel.
Yeah.
And so that's where I look at everything from a steward. How can I leave something for an inheritance for my kids and my grandkids? My grandfather planted pine trees, 10,000. I helped him plant 10,000 pine trees. He's not going to see reaping a benefit of all that money and time that he spent us planting it.
But
And I'm probably not going to get
kids
reaping.
will.
He was even looking out for his great-grandkids.
Right.
So I look at land management completely different because I'm not looking at myself. I'm not looking to see what I can get out of it. I'm looking to see what can I pass on to the next generation. And that is how you get more people into hunting, is having the right worldview on how this works. It's not about trying to kill the biggest buck. It's not about trying to get your page on the newspaper. That's cool. And there's nothing wrong with that. And if it happens, awesome. But we need to sit back. We need to reflect. Look at what we need to stop. And just, with a bottle of whiskey, how's it made? Let's dive deep into it. Let's appreciate what we have. Even if we don't like it, we can appreciate it. We understand it more. Look at the Flintlock hunting. Why is it there? Let's dive in. Go into the history. I appreciate it more. All that type of stuff. But when I look at the hunting industry, it's like, let's see how overly produced we can put 90% B-roll footage in a video, and everything starts, all the shows start looking the same.
Yep.
And what I thought is amazing, I was like, that's awesome. Go to the next video. Everybody knows that one shot of the barbed wire and the sun coming up and the frost on the grass floating. Everybody has that shot, right? And then the frost on the leaf and it falling down and the footsteps stepping on the leaf. Everybody knows that because everybody has that shot. Everything is overly produced.
Yeah.
And I'm not against that. Do what you want. But it takes away from, like you said, more is not always better.
Right.
You take away from that special part of that.
For sure. That's the danger of being in the space. Anybody that asks us about how can I do it or how can I, on the marketing side, how can I get in the industry, there will be a warning in the response, which is like, be careful what you ask for. Because like when I walked into it, I thought it was going to be the greatest thing ever. And I love what I do. Don't get me wrong. But I saw things that ruined my view on hunting almost immediately. Yeah. The things that I had seen from the outside that were using my right side of brain, imaginative, and thought was amazing, I saw behind the curtain were not that way.
Yeah.
Case in point, when you see things being faked or you hear, you think that people are making these products because they want you to be a better hunter. Meanwhile, it's just all about dollars and cents.
I'll tell you
Take your money.
I'll tell you what crushed me as a young hunter. My grandfather took my dad caribou hunting. So my dad wanted to take me caribou hunting for graduation. So we went up to Kuujjuaq, I think is what it is, furthest most point in Quebec, and then fly back down 150 miles, bush plane, land on a sketchy dry rotted tire bush plane that could flop right into a lake. But anyways, we're in Montreal, and I'm sitting on the bus. We said, hey, let's just walk around. We have the rest of the day. Let's just take a bus tour around Montreal. This guy gets out from the airport. He's by himself. He gets up. He sits right beside me. He's all in camo, and I look over. It's Jackie Bushman. I'm 18. That's who I grew up watching, him and Bill Jordan.
Yep.
I even wrote to Young Bucks, mailbox.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, with Ernest on there.
With Ernest.
Yeah.
What is his name?
Red?
Shotgun?
Is it Red?
Shotgun Red.
Shotgun Red?
Yeah, Shotgun.
Yeah.
And
Ernest.
So I'm sitting there, and we're like, and as soon as I said it, everybody else recognized it. And I'm like, what are you doing? He goes, I just got done with a hunt. I'm heading back. And we're like, oh, that's cool. Shook his hand. I thought that was really cool. So then, they ended up taking us right to his camp.
Yep.
And I was told, I don't know, the CEO from Nikon was on the plane. Like, I'm seeing these racks going on the plane wrapped up that aren't broken in half. And as the plane flew off, I was like, well, who were those guys? Were they his guide and stuff? They said, no, him and his guide flew out early, but those were the guys from Nikon. He was hunting with them. And he said they were taking the racks with them. I said, what do you mean? Taking the racks with them? Like, did somebody not take the racks with them? I said, oh, no, Jackie's all down here. I said, doesn't he take them? No. I said, he doesn't take them unless they're record book. You just shoot, boom, off to the next place. Shoot, boom. And I'm like, you got to be kidding me. Like, nope. I had the video. You can watch it on YouTube and see his name. And I'm like, it just was like, whoa.
Soul crushing.
I'm like, you gotta be kidding me. Like, that's not who. And then, like, that little peek behind the scenes. So I even talked to somebody that was, I think it was his guide or something. He's like, oh, yeah, he doesn't keep anything unless it's a record book. He just shoot and go on. I don't know what happens to the meat, but obviously it doesn't go to waste. Somebody
gets it.
But I'm like, I knew right then and there that something deep down inside of me, that wasn't right. It was gut-wrenching. I'm like, that's not the way I grew up.
Yeah.
That's not how I seen hunting. It was a completely different aspect. All just so you can get TV show
content.
Yep, content. And I mean, me and my dad filmed that hunt on a high 8 cassette tape video camera. And it was hard hunting because we were being picky, and it came down to the last day, and our boat was all capsized, filled with water, and you could see my dad going, Johnny's hoof, and I can't keep up. And I'm running. I ran up on, and it was like they're coming across the little causeway, and I just laid down and started slinging a lot of my 7mm, and then coming out the other side, one came out, and the other one, oh, he's laying there. It was fun, but I mean, it was more of an experience with my dad.
Yep.
But the whole point of it, that whole little section just really, I'm like, man. So with that in the back of my head, coming into YouTube, that was before YouTube. That was in 2003.
Right.
So that was always a little bit in the back of my head of, I do not want to be like that. I don't, if it takes being at the top to be like that, I don't want it.
You don't want to be there. Crazy, man. It's, I think hopefully people listening to this can hear, a lot of the warning signs of stuff, but really, if anything, and continuing off of our Blanton podcast, the last one we did, first of all, especially when we talk about whitetail, they're just deer, right? Like, don't ruin relationships over them. And if anything, slow down at this part of the year, right? Sure. I mean, because things are so busy and life is so busy, it goes fast. For most of us, by the time this drops till, mid-December, it's what we look forward to year round. It's the best time to be outside. It's magical, and so.
Dude, today is September 26th.
Yeah.
I mean, not when you're listening to it, but recording it.
Yeah.
Deer season is, for us in Ohio, 2 days away.
It's just, slow down, enjoy it. Don't stress yourself out about it. They're just deer at the end of the day. And probably, if anything, I encourage people to try to find some camaraderie this year, because I think that we have been consistently drifting to somewhat being selfish and thinking about ourselves, and that camaraderie aspect of hunting is why our ancestors really did it, besides putting food on the table.
That's just like I said, you can have everything. You can give all the seasons, open up the bag limits, let the doors wide open, and most likely you may get a little bump, because historically there was always a little bump.
Sure.
Even back in the 80s, even back in the 90s, when nothing was changing, there was always a little bump here and there, a little bump here and there. But it's always going to go down. And that's the problem. The problem is in here.
Mm-hmm.
This is where the problem is.
Yeah.
And getting away from God, getting away from family, the breakdown of everything, the mentality, the culture, everything is changing. The desensitivity of everything, the idolization of everything. That's the root cause of why people are changing the hunting industry, because they don't. And I'm not saying everybody in the back then, when we had 1.2 million hunters, that everybody was hunting for the right reasons, and everybody was good people back then. It's just showing that there is a dramatic change in the way that people view things than there are today. And I think that's the root cause. It has nothing to do with advertising. It has nothing to do with it's reflected in what you're seeing on social media when people are getting down on somebody for shooting a small buck.
Yeah.
So you're just seeing the products of the root problem.
Yeah.
So
I agree. Well, 4 hours went pretty fast, I think. Just about 4 hours.
We still got SD cards?
They're about to be done. That's why we'll wrap it up.
That takes us a little while ago.
Yeah. No, we maxed them out, man. Just like that. You just get into these conversations and
just go.
You just go. But Well, we appreciate you boys coming down and spending time with us in podcast and you know, it's I think some really good discussions there, and I'm sure a lot of people, if they haven't heard of you and your channel, for sure will. After this,
we didn't even talk about the rattlesnakes.
I know. Well, if anything, hopefully they go and look for those videos, because there's plenty of them up there to be able to check out and see. And yeah, no, I mean, we appreciate. We'll have to get you guys back down in here and recap maybe postseason of how everything went. But yeah, we appreciate you guys making the trip and spending time with us.
Enjoyed it.
Perfect, guys. Well, we appreciate everyone listening to episode 208 of HUNTR Podcast with the Leatherwood boys, and we'll catch y'all next week.
Later.
Take me